study session. Can we have a roll call, please?
Mayor Peck,
Present.
Councilmember Christ,
Present.
Councilmember Hidalgo-Faring,
Here.
Councilmember Martin,
Present.
Councilmember McCoy,
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez,
Here.
Councilmember Yarbrough.
Here.
Mayor, you have a quorum.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Sorry, I just shoved my chair at you.
Yeah, I noticed. For those of you at home, you can watch this movie on the city's YouTube channel. You can also go to the longmontpublicmedia.org/watch or on Comcast channels 8 and 880. Anyone wishing to speak at first call, public invited to be heard, will need to add his or her name to the list outside the council chambers. Only those on the list will be invited to speak at the first public invited to be heard. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any motions to direct the city manager to add agenda items to future agendas? Councilwoman Hidalgo-Faring.
Thank you, Mayor. I actually have two tonight. The first one is to add to it the next regular session, in a resolution to endorse the 2024 St. Vrain Valley School District bond as partners. You know, it seems appropriate. Do I have a second? Okay.
It's been moved by Councilor Hidalgo-Faring, seconded by Councilor McCoy to endorse the school district bond on the 2024 ballot in November. Is there any discussion among councilors? Seeing none, let's vote. And that passes unanimously. Thank you. Councilor
Thank you.
Hidalgo-Faring.
And I have, yes, the second one. And this one can actually, it's a motion to bring an item to our next, or whenever possible, study session to have a discussion. Last week during our open forum, we heard a lot of residents from the airport, and, you know, they are our neighbors, they're, you know, we work as partners. But the other piece is that I've also heard from several residents that have a lot of concerns around airport activity. So there are some things that council does have purview over and others that we cannot, but really kind of bridging that gap and bringing the two, you know, bringing our entities together with our airport board and staff to come and have a discussion with us.
All right, it's been moved again by Councilor Hidalgo-Faring, seconded by Councilor McCoy, to have a discussion with staff and the airport manager and council to actually, in the board.
Any member from the board, yeah.
Right. So is there any discussion on this? I know that we've already had the airport manager come and give us a report, but we have been getting so many emails from the public that there are some specific questions that I think that this council needs to ask about the airport so that we can better answer our constituents. So I don't see anybody waiting to discuss this, so, Harold.
A couple of clarifications on this. So I've heard with the Airport Advisory Board, so are you all looking for a joint meeting with the Airport Advisory Board, or just invite them to listen into the conversation?
I thought if they could come in and listen into the conversation, and have that just be a study session item for discussion.
Second question is, as we're heading into September, we have budget, so the study sessions in September are going to be pretty budget heavy. Depending on the schedule, is it okay if it slides into October?
That is fine.
Okay.
Great, thank you for that, Harold. Let's vote. And that passes 6-1 with Councilor Rodriguez opposing. thank you. And I don't see anybody else in the queue that wants to put anything on the agenda, but I do also have a motion, and this is in part to clarify an error that I made in a motion. It wasn't really an error, but let me explain. So, a couple of weeks ago, I made a motion to give the Platte River Power Authority dollars that they give to each municipality of our 4 municipalities, a portion of $100,000 that they give every year. And for our city, that was $30,868. Historically, that has all gone to the Longmont Economic Development Partnership, but it is up to the mayor. These are discretionary funds. It is up to the mayor to decide where those go. So I made a motion that instead of giving it to LEDP this year, we give it to the CARES fund to help residents with utilities. I had a meeting with the chair of LEDP and one of the board members, and they said they've already put that money into their budget for 2025, and that it would hurt them drastically next year if they did not get those dollars. So my motion is, and it's up to council, I am just trying to compromise a bit. I move to allocate the $30,868 from the council contingency fund to give to LEDP on a one-time basis only. Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
They don't need it.
So I do want to say that these are discretionary funds and that no budget should ever be made upon discretionary funds. So, but I don't think historically anyone has ever given it to anyone else but LEDP. So they were shocked that I should do that. So just to keep things moving, we do have it in the council contingency. I see no one in the queue that would like to speak, so let's vote.
Yeah, McCoy seconded it. No, other way.
Yes, we it's okay, that was my error as well. So that passed with Aaron Rodriguez opposing, Councilor Rodriguez. So thank you, and I apologize for that error, but I do need to say that I did not need to ask LEDP what to do with those funds. So now let's move on in the agenda. Yes.
I know Councilmember Hidalgo Farian's motion was at the next regular meeting. Could we bring it on the 27th, the resolution for the school district? That gives us, because we have to get the agenda out in a couple of days. So if we can put it on the 27th, that would help staff who has to draft it.
Councilor Hidalgo Farian.
That's fine.
Okay.
No worries about that. I believe tomorrow, during the school board meeting, they will be discussing and making a motion to put it on the ballot
Okay.
anyways. So anytime after
Okay.
that point, perfect.
We'll
Thank
hit the 27th.
Great. So I'm going to adjust the agenda a bit, and we're going to have the proclamation for sister cities before public invited to be heard. Because as you can see, we have quite a few students and ambassadors and chaperones in the audience. So this proclamation is designating August 6th, 2024 as Longmont Sister Cities Appreciation Day in Longmont, Colorado. Whereas the residents of Longmont honor our relationship with our sister cities and continue our commitment to cultural exchange. And whereas Longmont has 3 sister cities, Chino, Japan, Ciudad Guzman, Mexico, and the Northern Arapaho Wind River Reservation. And whereas, born of a shared vision of cultural understanding, appreciation, and celebration, the Longmont Sister Cities Association has organized student exchanges for nearly 30 years. And whereas we thank our ambassadors who represented Longmont abroad and welcome the delegations that travel to our community. And whereas we hope the sisterhood between our cities will only strengthen in the years to come. Now therefore, I, Joan Peck, Mayor, by virtue of the authority vested in me and the City Council of the City of Longmont, do hereby proclaim August 6th, 2024 as Longmont Sister Cities Appreciation Day in Longmont, Colorado. I would like to invite Courtney to the stand. She is the chair of the Sister Cities Board, or president, I should say.
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Peck, City Council members. Thank you very much for your continued support of our programs for all three of our sister cities. These programs change lives, open minds, and expand hearts. And that is what we hope for our youth of today, so that as they continue through the world, they will be better world citizens. And that started right here in Longmont. So thank you very much again for your continued support of our program. And we look forward to this going on many more years.
Thank you very much. Can we have all of the ambassadors, chaperones, and any board members that are here come up for a picture? And to receive the proclamation.
Well, we're gonna need 2 or 3 lanes, I think. If folks would like to sit down in the front, that's okay too. We're about 8 people too wide. Let's.
Sandy, do you want to move back?
That won't help you. Pass the solids in the way. All right. Oh, we're getting there. Nope. I would like for everybody on this side from Janice over, except for Councilmember McCoy, to come over here and just sit in front. Come on over and sit in front. And I can't get air in here, so we're gonna need a little more squishy on this side. There you go. There you go, perfect. Yeah, that's We're so close, okay. All right. We're getting there, we're so close. Yeah, you can do it. Okay, everybody, ready? 1, 2, 3. Very good, thank you.
Oh, no. I've been fired.
Have fun, you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Que tengan buen viaje para atrás.
That's right. We are now at first call, public invited to be heard. I noticed that on this sheet, most of you in the auditorium here are from LPM. So if you hear someone say exactly what you are going to say, you can say, I agree with that guy or that person. But everybody will be called on. So the first person, remember I need your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. Vivian Enfinger?
evening.
Pull down the microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you, Vivian.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor Peck and City Council members. My name is Vivian Infinger. I live at 1212 Wildfire Court here in Longmont. I want to thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm here to please ask for you to think about the possible Quail Road annexation. We happen to live right across from the proposed area. I would hope at some point in time, maybe this area could be preserved even for open space instead of for more apartments. When the apartments were built on Airport Road, it really changed the traffic and all of the shopping in the area completely. We happen to live in that cul-de-sac. Not that this matters, but my husband has dementia. That we own a store here in town, and I care for him full-time at home. Sometimes it has taken me 4.5 minutes to just get out of our cul-de-sac because of the traffic. That's a long time. And my concern is if we have more cars, 500-600 cars, whatever it might be, that get added to the 17.5 acres in front of us, that could be a major problem. Unfortunately, with him having dementia, a lot of people have told me, well, why don't you just move somewhere else? Well, you can't really move a dementia patient out of their home in their area. So just moving to avoid all this problem, I can't do that. Plus, I don't want to leave the area because of our store. I'm sorry, this is my first time doing this.
You're doing fine. It's fine.
So I just can't imagine having construction go on for quite a while in front of our home with the noise and everything else. I mean, right now we can sit on our porch and enjoy things. And I know life changes. I've lived in Longmont since the early 70s, and I've seen a lot of changes. My husband's had our store for 55 years here. So he's been around a long time also. I would like to invite all of you that are sitting on the board and Mayor Peck, if you ever want to come to our home or to our cul-de-sac and hang out and see what I'm talking about, I think you would really understand what it's like. There's many times my husband has fallen, and I've called for the fire department to come lift him and get him off the floor for me. And luckily it's been in the middle of the night. It hasn't been early in the day with traffic. So that's just my concern. So I think, did I touch something?
No.
Okay.
That's your 3 minutes, Vivian.
Oh, okay.
That's the timer.
Okay, thank you. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
your
much
time.
for
Yes,
coming.
thank you.
Martin Orner.
Martin Orner, 1417 Auburn Court, here in Longmont. Mayor and Council, I am here again about the dead and dying vegetation and the lack of maintenance thereof along 17th Avenue between Hover and Harvard. I called Streets about this on May 30th. I stopped by the Sunset Service Center and personally left a message with staff there about this. I came before you on July 23rd about this. I left a note at the city manager's office early last week about this. I left an email for the city manager's office today about this. I'm asking, who is responsible for the maintenance of this right-of-way? Several short years ago, during employment with Adams County government, staff was told to return phone calls within 24 business hours. I haven't had a response from city staff in nearly 2.5 months. Tonight, I stand before you wearing my When Pigs Fly socks. Hopefully, I will hear from City Longmont staff before then. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Christopher McClure? You're going to have to educate me on how to pronounce that.
That's right, McClure is
Oh,
correct. Yeah.
perfect.
Christopher McClure, 4435 Driftwood Place in Boulder County. In an age where media control is increasingly concentrated in the hands of powerful financial interests, the importance of
Christopher,
yeah,
do you live in the city?
in Longmont?
Uh-huh.
No.
I'm sorry, this first call public invited to be heard is,
With study sessions.
oh, that, oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Go ahead.
Okay, the importance of preserving the First Amendment and freedom of speech cannot be overstated. I am a creative artist and entrepreneur, and I passionately emphasize the crucial role of community media organizations like Longmont Public Media in ensuring that diverse voices can be heard across the globe. Today, traditional and social media platforms are often influenced by monetary interest, limiting the diversity of perspectives available to the public. This control can stifle creativity and expression, making it difficult for individuals, especially those from marginalized communities, to share their messages and ideas. Organizations like Longmont Public Media play a vital role in countering this trend by providing the tools, training, and volunteer networks necessary to disseminate messages globally. They empower individuals to exercise their right to free speech. These organizations create a platform for people to share their stories, ideas, and messages, regardless of their socioeconomic status. One of the key strengths of community media is its ability to foster a supportive environment. At Longmont Public Media, individuals are not only encouraged to meet their own needs, but also to support others in sharing their messages. This collaborative spirit helps build a network of voices that can reach audiences worldwide, promoting a rich tapestry of perspectives and ideas. The ability to deliver messages to a global audience is priceless. It ensures that all voices, not just those backed by significant financial resources, can contribute to the public discourse. By empowering individuals to speak out and share their experiences, community media organizations uphold the principles of free speech and democracy. In a world where media control is often dictated by financial power, organizations like Longmont Public Media serve as beacons of hope for preserving free speech. By offering training, support, and a platform for diverse voices, they enable individuals to break free from the constraints of traditional media and connect with audiences around the world. This capability to deliver messages globally is invaluable, ensuring that every voice has an opportunity to be heard and make an impact. By embracing and supporting community media, we can uphold the values of the First Amendment and ensure that freedom of speech remains a fundamental right for all.
Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you.
Sarah Wright.
Good evening, Mayor, Puck, and council members. I'm Sarah Wright. I live at 4435 Driftwood Place in Boulder County as well. I was born and raised here, though I've mostly lived in Colorado. I did live in Beaufort County, South Carolina for almost a decade, where I worked as an education reporter. Two things I loved about my time in the South were the incredible diversity. Our town was 1/3 Black, 1/3 Hispanic, and 1/3 white. And the other was the sense of closeness in a smaller community. Since moving back in 2011, I've loved the mountains, obviously, but miss both the diversity and the strong sense of community. I work from home and my daughter is grown, so it can feel a little lonely at times. Since the first time my husband and I toured Longmont Public Media, I felt like I'd found a home. I knew that if I were a student in high school or college, like the St. Vrain and Boulder Valley School District students and college students who intern at LPM, that I would want to do my homework there so I could soak up the many opportunities to take classes, volunteer, and learn from a truly diverse group of volunteers who are experts in lighting, sound, video, and other media. Though I grew up playing piano and singing in jazz choirs, I took about 20 years off of music. and only got back into it 10 years ago when I started songwriting and learning the bass guitar. Our band, Radiant Deep, needed a high-quality video in order to gain entry into the venues and festivals whose audience members might love our original music that we call Spirit Jam Funk Punk. We hadn't figured yet how to afford a video professionally made. At LPM, not only were we able to have a performance filmed by gifted, talented, kind, and friendly volunteers, but we can take classes in DaVinci and get help editing the footage. We met a great sound engineer who runs our soundboard. All this came with a modest creator membership fee of $30 a month. We do not look for opportunities to attend extra meetings and certainly appreciate our public servants. However, we do and can go to LPM's member meetings often because the combination of friendly kindness and crackling creativity is just flat out fun. The people of Longmont and Boulder County are incredibly fortunate to have Longmont Public Media available as a creator space for the public. Thank you for continuing your support of LPM financially so that these opportunities remain available to all. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Ostick.
Good evening, Mayor Peck and Council. My name is Tim Ostick. I live at 202 East Longspeak Avenue in Longmont, Colorado. I'm the community manager and administrative assistant at Longmont Public Media, and I've spent the past 12 years playing music, my original songs, and pouring into the music community in Longmont, Colorado. I know you've heard the many ways, both earlier today and last week, that Longmont Public Media contributes to the community in Longmont, how it's one of the most diverse, welcoming, and creative communities in town, how they provide access to professional media equipment to the community, and how they record events around this town that make this town so special. I've experienced all this personally, but I want to talk specifically about how Longmont Public Media contributes to the music community in Longmont. I moved here when I was 21, looking to build a life in music. I was greeted by an open, supportive, and talented group of songwriters and musicians, just trying to do something positive with their music. We played in breweries while canning machines were running. We played in bars while football games were playing, and we played in coffee shops while people had their headphones in, and other more difficult situations. While it's always a joy to perform music, sometimes it's a struggle to feel like you're making an impact. What my fellow musicians and I felt was missing in Longmont was a quiet space where people could hear music that they work so hard on without distraction. An environment where an artist could be heard, where the audience can experience the depth of what music has to offer. The venue space at Longmont Public Media perfectly filled that need. It is accessible for local artists with modest followings to put on a successful concert, but also for established touring bands like the Heart Collectors from Australia and Alexa Wildish from The Voice to perform at a professional venue. I performed at LPM 4 times, and my fans come to shows there because they know people will listen, the equipment sounds amazing, and it'll be a good experience for everyone. On top of the live performance space, Longmont Public Media provides a professional recording studio. I've paid thousands of dollars of my own money to make albums. Anyone can join LPM as a member and have access to the same equipment for free. Providing a great venue and recording studio is a small part of what Longmont Public Media has to offer, but it's a huge asset to the music community in Longmont. As a musician and as a human, it's a rare thing to feel like you're truly heard. LPM provides a space where that can happen. I want to thank you for creating this space, for allowing this to happen, and I wanted to encourage you to continue to allow it to happen because it's a wonderful resource that Longmont needs as a music community, and it already exists. Thank you so much.
No clapping, please. Okay, Molly Bochum. I agree, though, that was a pretty good speech.
Hello. My address is on the list.
Yep.
Hello, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Molly Bosham, and I live in Ward 1. I'm here to advocate for LPM, the renewal of the city contract. Since December of 2022, I have been helping broadcast City Council meetings and other events with LPM. I would like to start by thanking Councillor McCoy for his acknowledgement and support of the work that we, the production team, do. While your comment about watching paint dry is definitely true sometimes, I love my job. I graduated with my bachelor's in film and television from CU Denver in 2022. During my schooling, I had professors tell me that because I was a woman, I would have to be 10 times better than any guy if I wanted to get anywhere. I also had male peers repeatedly try to belittle me. However, I worked hard and won a school film award. But after I graduated, I struggled to find a job in my field. I got one interview and 0 job offers. Then I discovered LPM. When I discovered LPM, I found a local film community that accepted and encouraged me. I made friends who helped me rediscover myself, and Sergio was the first person to give me a chance in the film world by inviting me to join the production team. Through LPM, I was invited to be a guest on a podcast, encouraged to try making informative shorts on lighting techniques, looked into the possibility of teaching, and so much more. I was a gearhead in college, and I love the gear at LPM. For instance, I learned how to operate a drone for filming, something that was never an option in school. But I think the most important thing LPM has to offer is the people. Gear is replaceable, but you cannot replace people. At LPM, I have had the opportunity to learn from an award-winning editor and interact with so many different creatives. LPM, its workers, and its community have given so many people opportunities when no one else would. LPM has helped cultivate an incredibly supportive community in a field where you often see people tear each other down. And that brings me to the contract. I am currently a full-time student working on my master's degree. I have mentioned to Sergio before that I will continue doing the broadcasting for as long as LPM in the city will let me, until I finish school and start my career. Until that time, I will continue doing the best I can to keep the broadcasts running smoothly. Technical difficulties sometimes happen, but I've always done my best to work with the city staff to solve things quickly. I look forward to hopefully being able to continue improving the broadcast and plan to help organize LPM's side of the closet so I can use my technical knowledge to help things run even smoother. So when considering the contract, I hope you keep in mind that anyone can buy or use the same equipment, but you cannot replace the community and workers of LPM. I hope in the future we can have more open communication so everyone can get the most out of the contract. I understand that contracts must be reevaluated, but I hope that hearing myself and others speak encourage you, the council, to renew the contract. Thank you for your time, and now I will go back and continue doing my job.
Thank you, Marco. Sergio Angeles.
One second, he's in the back.
He's where?
He's in the back. He's running.
Oh, of course. Well, let's move on to the next person then.
Yes, he'll be back in just a second. He and Molly are swapping spots so that they can keep the show going.
Got it. All right. Jeffrey Gould.
Good evening, I'm Jeffrey Gould. I live at 402 Tungsten Place here in Longmont. It's near Skyline High School. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about electricity and energy distribution. I read a local newspaper recently and it said you would be soon considering prohibiting other energy sources other than electricity for future new development or new redevelopment. I'm an electrical engineer, so I know a little bit about electricity and distribution, and I loved electricity. I especially love Longmont electricity. It's affordable and more reliable than average, and it's one of our great blessings to live in Longmont, to have that electricity service. However, I'm also, as an engineer, against risk. Putting all your eggs in one basket is not a wise thing to do. I once was in an ice storm where I was without electricity for 3 days, and my only source of heat was getting in the bathtub with hot water, which I did multiple times a day. So I like having what we call redundancy, a second source of energy, because you should never rely on only one thing, on something important to your life and safety. So I encourage you to continue investing in clean energy and incentivizing electrical use, but please do not prohibit second forms of electricity in the future. Thank you. Second forms of energy in the future.
Thank you. Did Sergio come in? There you are.
Good evening, Mayor Peck and Council. My name is Sergio Angeles, co-founder and executive director of Longmont Public Media, and I live at 236 East Mountain View. Before I start, I would like to follow up on Councilmember McCoy's comments at the open forum last week. I'd like to personally invite each of you to come to LPM and create media with us and the community. Perhaps we can do a weekly Q&A live stream with each of you, or maybe you have other ideas about what you want to, or how you want to digitally interact with our community. Whatever it is, LPM is here to help and support you every step of the way, so come stop by. That said, I would like to say thank you. We are extremely grateful to provide media and public access services to our community. It is a privilege to operate under a contract in the same nonprofit fashion as other local organizations like Visit Longmont, the Latino Chamber, and Longmont EDP. Together, we strengthen the fabric of our community. Longmont Public Media is more than just public access, more than studios and equipment, more than fulfilling a contract. LPM is a vision, a culture of teamwork, a community of diverse individuals with a passion to create, learn, and empower others with media. We have worked hard to make LPM the most inclusive and accessible community, to break down barriers and make media and media education accessible and equitable to everybody. You and the city helped make this happen, and I hope you are as proud about LPM as we are. Because of our commitment to culture, community, and accessibility, we've had the community inquire about expanding our makerspace beyond media. We could easily support such an expansion, but we choose to focus on what we do best, media. Our dedication to media and media education is unwavering, and we owe it to our community and to you to be the best in this field. It's why we exist and why we do what we do. As a nonprofit organization, we're not here to just grow. We're here to provide vital services that make an impact in the lives of our community. In today's digital age, media is moving incredibly quickly, and there's a never-ending stream of new equipment, tools, software, and now AI. When someone clones your voice and uses it for disinformation, who will educate residents about what's real and what isn't? LPM will. Who will continue to bridge the digital divide and fix the disparities, and who can participate in the digital world? Who will ensure that residents have the skills needed to create and critically analyze media content? LPM will. We take all of these responsibilities and more seriously, because this is not just our job, it is our commitment to the public good. Thank you for your continued support and dedication to our community. Together, let's keep pushing the boundaries of what we can achieve through local media. Thank you.
Thank you, Sergio. C.E. Rom? Or is it just C?
It's CE.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is C.E. Rom. I live at 735 9th Avenue. I'm a member of the Tinker Mill, and I'm also honored to serve as the president of the board of directors. Our board is made up out of members and community leaders and is elected by our entire membership. When I was moving to Colorado, I did something I've never done before. Rather than moving to a new city and finding a really cool makerspace, this time I looked for the best makerspace I could find, and that's what brought me to Longmont. I've been lucky enough to be involved with several makerspaces, both in the US and overseas. And although every one of them is unique, they do share one quality. They are a reflection of the community that creates them. One of our members has been touring this summer, and when visiting a seaside village in Washington State, found a community boat space. That's what they needed, and that's what they made. Tinker Mill has been a fantastic resource for me. I've been able to learn and grow and delight in all my passions. I was able to teach high school students how to do stained glass and lead interns at Seagate through fun learning activities, and even stretch my LED light capabilities when we decorated 380 Main Street with 15,000 programmable LEDs for LDDA. And like any great makerspace, it's been reactive and it's grown before my eyes. We discovered a shared passion for astronomy and created Tinker Mill Astronomy. It's not a traditional makerspace activity, but it doesn't matter. We do what we like to do together. And it's grown into a monthly astronomy on the sidewalk event right here in downtown. In fact, I invite everybody to come out next Friday night and view the night sky with us at 5th and Main Street. We also created a repair cafe where the public can bring in their broken items. And not only do we fix them, we teach them how to fix them themselves. And everything we fix is an item that doesn't wind up in the landfill. So these are just some of the examples of how Tinker Mill reacts to the desires of our community and changes constantly to meet them. Because we now hear a strong desire from both our members and the community at large to provide the skills, equipment, and expertise in the media space, we are doing what we will always do, creating a safe, nurturing, and exciting place to make, learn, and grow. We appreciate the care and concern the City Council puts into the responsible allocation of public funds and welcome the opportunity to show how Tinkermill can provide an awesome solution that meets the needs and desires of our community. I would like to ask the City Council to create a new request for proposal so that Tinkermill can show how we could provide the PEG programming services for all of Longmont. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, CE. Vince Devine.
Good evening, City Council members. My name is Vincent Devine, and I live at 485 2nd Avenue. I'm here tonight to discuss community engagement and how Tinkermill makes this a priority. Since I started as the media manager at Tinkermill Media 3 months ago, we have collaborated with organizations such as Longmont Community Justice Partnership, the Longmont Museum, the Longmont Humane Society, the Senior Center Eyes on Longmont Video Club, the Times Collaborative, the Longmont Chamber of Commerce, Recovery Cafe, an emerging local AI company, a skateboard company here in town, as well as Longmont residents. We've also created highlight reels of city events like Cinco de Mayo and Juneteenth, which are available to use as promotional material in future years. Together, we have created content that tells the stories of our community. Our projects range from advertisements and social media campaigns to feature-length documentaries, and we take pride in educating our members on how to use social media and videography to grow their businesses. Notably, we are producing a documentary on the history of the Great Western Sugar Factory, one of Longmont's iconic landmarks. Through this project, we have connected with the Longmont Museum, the Historic Preservation Committee, and local residents. This project, along with others, highlights our commitment to preserving and sharing the unique stories of our city. Looking forward, we aspire to continue creating content in collaboration with the city. One of our ideas is to develop a weekly series where city officials can share their work and contribution to this community. Given our track record and commitment to community engagement, I request that the City Council consider opening this contract for RFP. This will provide you with the opportunity to explore various perspectives and possibilities for the city's media representation. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Vince. Aaron Hord.
Hello, can you hear me? Mm-hmm. Hello, City Council members and Mayor Peck. I'm Erin Hord. I live at 1316 South Lincoln Street. I'm here tonight as the Executive Director of Tinkermill, Longmont's Makerspace, to discuss the strengths that Tinkermill brings to this community and how we could further serve Longmont through the city contract for PEG Access television services. Tinkermill turned 11 years old this summer. We are proud of how we have been able to grow and impact our community with very little outside funding. With an always growing membership of nearly 800 makers, we are a self-sustaining organization with strong financials. We are entirely supported through member contributions, classes, corporate sponsorships, and grants. Even through COVID, we grew and have since been able to focus on education and being a vital part of our community. We have a dedicated board of directors made up of volunteers within our organization and from the local business community, and we practice good governance. We have a strong leadership team between our board, staff, instructors, and volunteers, and we know how to manage a makerspace, how to make it sustainable, and how to embrace our challenges and bring opportunities to the community. The idea of a media makerspace is a great one. And it's a great fit for what we do. If Tinkermill were awarded this contract, no one would lose out. No one would lose their community space. We'll do what we do best, provide space, tools, and people to teach you how to use them. This community resource will still be here for everyone. We welcome any and all media, music, and artistic communities to join us on this ride, because it's gonna be fun. As Nonprofit of the Year, excuse me, as Nonprofit of the Year, Tinkermill has the leadership, infrastructure, expertise, and resources to better serve the citizens and the city of Longmont in this endeavor. And will not only execute this contract to a T, but will go well beyond it. I ask that the City Council open the city contract for PEG Access television services for RFP and give Tinkermill the opportunity to show how we can serve this community in a new and exciting capacity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin. T.G. Lewis.
Good evening, members of Longmont City Council, Madam Mayor. This is the first time that I've been back in this room for quite some time. 31 years ago, I was the guy in the back room for Longmont Cable Trust.
TG,
And
name and
oh,
address.
I'm sorry, 2335 Winding Drive.
Thank you.
Here in Longmont. And I came here because having seen Longmont Cable Trust and the way that it did what it did for a long, long time, and that it became Longmont Public Media, I've had a chance to see both operations. I think I might be kind of unique in that. Longmont Public Media I have found to be incredibly welcoming. I walked in about 3 years ago, walked downstairs and found Sergio, and we kind of looked at each other and said, "Hey, how you doing?" And we became friends instantly. Anytime that you do something creative, especially when it comes to teleproduction, you need a human machine. And that machine trades on cooperation, considerateness, one person to another. And almost everybody who is a member at Longmont Public Media has worked on almost every other member's project at one point in time. I find that to be fairly rare, and I think it's very, very valuable. And I would like to see that taken into consideration as you folks make your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, TG. John Williams.
Good evening, Mayor Peck and City Council. My name is John Williams. I live at 4185 Gilpin Drive in Boulder. At Longmont Public Media, I host several programs. I have a program called LPM Shorts, where we bring in filmmakers to talk about their films. It is almost always sold out. I also do photography shows at LPM. And I'm also a member of the Boulder International Film Festival staff. And what I've done is got Biff to start working with LPM, with the museum shows that they have during that. And the people at Biff have been extremely impressed with LPM. And like's been said a number of times tonight, is the great thing about LPM is the community of passionate people. And they are willing to work with each other, work on each other's projects, and pretty much do whatever comes down the line. And I was thinking about this, and I thought that the diversity of makerspaces is what really makes Longmont great, or it's one of the things. And it might be a bit like restaurants. If you want good mole, the Rosa Cantina wouldn't disappoint you. Las Palmas for enchiladas and Jefes for tacos would also be good choices. Longmont wouldn't have better Mexican food by consolidating them all into one giant Taco Bell. Likewise, I think it would be a mistake to undermine LPM's community and bring a halt to all this great work they're doing. Thank you so much for your past support, and I urge you to continue your support of LPM.
Thank you, John. Amira Kanoa.
Good evening, and thank you so much for your time. I'm Amir Okanda. My address is, it's all good, 7458 Mount Sherman Road. And I'm a recent graduate of the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts. And I'd like to start right off the bat that LPM invests in the futures of budding filmmakers and youth artists. I simply could not have followed my dreams and have built out this budding film career without the resources and the opportunities like those given through LPM. I was born and raised in Gun Barrel, and my high school did not have a film program. Without access to workshops and equipment, a strong creative community, and dedicated teams at LPM, budding media makers and artists, many here tonight, would simply be left scattered and without resources. I could not have been accepted into my major, which at the time had less than a 1% acceptance rate, without the opportunities and support through local and public resources like LPM. Post-grad, I have even shot some critical scenes for a feature film at LPM, my first feature film, that were also free and open to the public, something that coming from LA is impossible to find. So I really hope that LPM can continue to be used by other students in the area and those who cannot afford expensive subscriptions and rentals to help drive the artist community of Longmont and build an everlasting foundation for youth to continue to hone their skills and follow their dreams. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Phil Hainline? No, I'm sorry, I missed a name, but you're second, Phil. Ann Robelts. Robelts? Come on down, Phil, and you'll be next.
Great, excellent. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Ann Robetz. I live at 5 Telluride Place in Longmont, and I'm here tonight as a community board director for Tinkermill, as well as in my role as engineering faculty at a local community college. I'm not going to make this very long. Much of what I was planning to say has already been said, and so it's very clear that the media makerspace adds an incredible amount of value to the Longmont community, as we've heard testimony from tonight. But in the engineering world, when we're making a decision process, we always want to open ourselves up and get all of the information about all of the other possibilities that could be used to hit on the same problem. And so I would encourage you to open an RFP for this contract so that you can make a fully informed decision moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil Hainline.
Let's see. Mayor Peck, council members. Oops, sorry about that. Ranging in. Phil Hainline, 500 Lashley. I'm still your magic guy, but first a few brass tacks. In Pittsburgh, I consulted a few public media organizations, and I just want to say that LPM is a really lean organization in terms of the money benefits the members. It's very hard to imagine more for less. Of course, less for less is always an option. One other point is that a monopoly was granted for public access. That was a trade-off, okay? A totally honest one. Well, today, you know, tools and technology matter more than a channel. You don't need a channel, but you still need that environment to make high-grade media, because today the media bar is dramatically higher. To stand out, to be noticed, to be heard, it takes a lot of tools and it takes some collaboration. Another point, and this one's really tricky, they always say that film is the most collaborative of arts. Music is certainly a collaborative thing. And so I'm going to suggest that making media is different than making stuff. It's got the making word in it, but one of them is really based on the community, the collaboration. And this place is off the charts in that spirit of helping each other. I mean, I've been a lot of places. It's crazy nice, okay? The other thing to talk about is technology strength, because unless you're intending to kill the public access, which I pray you're not, you really have to plan carefully, because the current team and volunteers have substantial experience in networking, software, lighting, streaming audio, recording technology, plugins. It's a crazy breadth of knowledge that you need, and it's a collaborative knowledge, because maybe you need a plug-in to kill the reverb on something like that. So just what I'm saying is it's a substantial technology range. Okay, so I know that we don't really have media access here, but I just want to show you here. Now I'm back to magic. Okay, here's a student film production. It's I gotta get this right, Yanagi's Aliens. This is creativity at its best. It's styrofoam. The mask is crazy creative. This is a behind-the-scenes shot. Believe me, they shot it in RAW. It's going to be really cinematic. Student production, well supported. This one is in the works. We're putting the museum members in the Lego set, okay, with green screen. All right? This is the kind of stuff that happens when you have all this cross-disciplinary skill. This is a pilot show, CC and the Joy Joy. That's a projected set, 3 projectors, rear projection, vinyl scenery. Once again, drawing on an incredible, diverse talent pool that wants to help each other.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Wow, sorry. Thank you.
Don't forget your laptop. Or there you go. Melanie Graham.
Hi, council members, Mayor Peck, longtime listener, first time caller. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight and for providing a platform to talk about community. I'd like you to picture in your head right now a community that you are a part of that has meant something to you. In person or virtual, local or national, religious or secular. Think of the community that has helped support you and allowed you to build meaningful connections. Think of how it helped you cope with the challenges these last few years have thrown at us. To many people in the room, their community is Longmont Public Media. It's where they connect and form relationships, learn new skills, build support networks, and grow as individuals. LPM gives our neighbors the tools to have important conversations about the issues our city faces. It provides a diverse group of individuals with creative outlets to showcase their talents and cultures. It's a resource that helps our city, our community, grow and thrive. When I arrived in Longmont, I knew no one, but LPM has provided a community where I've been able to meet and collaborate with my neighbors, building a network and helping it feel like I have a home here. And as many others have shared tonight and at previous meetings, I know I'm not alone in this sentiment. As you consider your continued support for Longmont Public Media, consider your communities and what they've meant to you. And remember that LPM is more than just a contract, it's more than just a building, it's more than just a makerspace, it's a community. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Lance Whitaker.
Brought my notes this time, so I won't look at you stupid. Mayor, City Council, my name is Lance Whitaker. I live at 1750 Collier Street. I've been a long-time resident for 44 years. I'll just bring you some happiness today and remind you today is Social Engineering Day with all our engineers in-house. Give you all selves a round of applause. Today's National Night Out Day, and I don't think most of us thought this would be the night out we were going for.
That's for sure.
Today is also Fresh Breath Day, so if you don't have mint, grab a piece of gum. Today is also National Root Beer Float. I'll be doing one of those tonight. And Wiggle Your Toes Day. And everybody wiggle your toes for a couple seconds. Get that circulation going through your feet. And have a nice day. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Always riveting, Lance. Vic Pizzo.
Hi, my name is Vic Pizzo, and I live at 1910 Clover Creek here in Longmont. And I work for NOAA, and we are part of our job is looking for, watching out for large effects from, say, the sun and from space and all kinds of things that can cause problems with the electric system in the United States. A coronal mass ejection, which is a big blob of gas shot out from the sun, can impact the Earth's magnetosphere, really cause problems that go all the way to the ground. There's something called the electromagnetic pulse you probably have heard about, where there's a danger that at some point a bad foreign antagonist might possibly set off a suborbital nuclear weapon. And we know from a test that occurred just before the test ban treaty went into effect in 1962, that has really bad effects. And so there are governments, unfortunately, outside looking for that to use to attack us. And finally, We have an aging electric grid. It's a really big thing. There's more than 150, I think, electrical companies all stitched together all across the country. And some of them are very robust and some are not. Unfortunately, they're tied together in a few places, like a half dozen, where if somebody were to knock out those half dozen places, the whole damn grid would go down. And the problem is that with the pulses that would come out of that, the transformers would be burned out, and you don't go down to Home Depot and buy a new transformer of that kind. They're real special order items. So the reason I'm bringing this up is there's real interest in going all electric, and electric is good, it's fine, but you need to supplement it, because if you don't have gas and other things as backup, you're going to be in big trouble. And I just want to keep reminding people of that in the plans going forward. It's not really feasible to have all electric. You have to have backup. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. And with that, there's no one else on this list. I'm going to close public invited to be heard. And we're going to take a 5 to 10 minute break. I always go over the 5 minutes. That's why I make it.
Yeah, no, that's true. You are like right in the camera frame perfectly.
I am. I should have had my Tinkerbell sticker on.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I saw this photo on social media whenever in our meeting. Yeah, it was such a good night. Did you see? I'm so sorry. I just pulled it away.
I got it quickly.
Yeah, it was a good time. They had a blast. That's amazing. Just a lot of questions. Look at you. Yeah, that's amazing. So what's your time? Oh, God. Before September, that's so short. That's cool, though.
It's really weird. It's so weird.
Might look better coming from you.
You can only be so specific.
I can sit still for 2.5 hours. Holy cow. With this collaboration with this kid? Oh, it's some big project. What kind of robotics? Never used those. Oh, weird. And so then those be around for, like, that could be a right out of the box project. Build this thing, yeah. How late did you sleep? When hours of work? Oh, and then I guess we were the electricity thing. Yeah. So we would have talked about that tonight if we had a Oh, it's okay. That's fair. That's fair. So with Ben and David, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. We are back. And I want to call up Marco Morelli because he signed up for public invited to be heard, and I did not call his name.
It's okay. Yeah, thanks for giving me a chance.
You get a whole special place on the agenda.
All right, Marco invited to be heard.
Yes.
My name is Marco Morelli, 409 Baker Street, and I'm here in support of Longmont Public Media. I was here last week. I had some prepared remarks. What I have at the moment are more impromptu observations based on the presentations that my fellow community members have made. Yeah, I just want to, let's see, I'm just a member of LPM. I don't have kind of all the information. I'm not part of leadership. I show up, I volunteer, I have projects. Anyway, it seems that Tinker Mill is wanting to compete for the same money, the contract that currently funds LPM, and of course they're right. I've heard, I'm not a member of Tinker Mill. I think I visited once when they were at the Create Space many years ago. And I've heard great things. I know it's a great organization. I don't know any of the people here except for Vince, and I think he's a cool guy. And I'm just curious why. Like, why are they doing this? You've heard the presentations from all these members of LPM. It's a good thing we've got going. And Tinker Mill's got a lot of great things that they're doing too. So why undermine something that's already a good thing with broad base of support? The people here are just a subset of the members who are supportive of what we do. I'm just speaking for myself. It feels a little unneighborly. It feels a little bit disrespectful. But of course, within their right. And I just want to bring that perspective forth. I think that in a big city like Longmont, there's room for a lot of different kinds of organizations doing a lot of good things. Competition can be helpful in a capitalistic society, but it's not always the best thing. And I think that I just want to ask you to take that into consideration. And I know you'll do the best thing for the city of Longmont and for all our communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, the next thing on our agenda, we're at the study session items, and it is the Tourism Improvement District.
Thank you, Mayor Peck and members of the City Council for your time. I'm Sarah Leonard. I'm the CEO of Visit Longmont, Longmont's destination marketing and management organization. And joining me to help share information today about a potential Longmont Tourism Improvement District is our partner from Civitas Advisors, Kelly Renkin. They have helped other communities throughout the United States go through a process to establish a tourism improvement district. And we're here to share information of what that might look like in Longmont. So this quote from Jack Johnson, who's an advocacy leader at Destinations International, an international network of destination marketing and management organizations like Visit Longmont, I believe sets the stage for a conversation this evening. Our presentation that we'll share with you about a potential Longmont Tourism Improvement District, a funding model is a funding model that keeps Visit Longmont competitive in the marketplace for attracting new visitors to our community. A tourism improvement district is a funding model for tourism marketing with the goal to increase room nights and economic activity. Funds raised through a TID assessment benefit only those businesses paying. In this case, we are proposing hotels in Longmont. This isn't a rogue idea. As I mentioned, Civitas Advisors has worked with hundreds of communities across the United States, and there are over 200 TIDs established in the United States, with the lowest generating $10,000 and the largest over $43 million. There are also TIDs already here in Colorado, including Visit Aurora, Visit Denver, and Visit Fort Collins, the newest one, which established in August 2022, and raised an additional $800,000 for their tourism promotion programs on top of their existing lodger's tax. Visit Boulder is also in process to establish their own tourism improvement district, and Visit Loveland has had TID conversations as well. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly to talk about the process around tourism improvement districts.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm Kelly Rankin with Civitas Advisors. So I'd like to explain the mechanics of the Tourism Improvement District and how it works. So once the TID is in place, the assessment is then placed on the hotel. So it's the hotel's responsibility to remit the fee to the TID. However, more times than not, about 99% of the time, the assessment or fee, synonymous terms, is passed on to the guest. So I stay in my hotel, I pay my room rate, I pay the lodger's tax, and then another line item is added for the TID assessment. The hotel who is comfortable paying their lodger's tax would then pay the TID funds in conjunction with the lodger's tax to the city. The city then would collect the funds, keep the lodger's tax, and then remit the TID assessment funds to the TID. So a couple characteristics that I'd like to point out about tourism improvement districts. There's a level playing field when it comes to these districts. So everybody pays, but everybody also benefits. When we draw the district boundary and we define the lodging business that we are assessing, we can't cherry pick who pays and who doesn't. So if you meet that definition and you are within our boundary, you will pay the assessment. There's also a high level of transparency and reliability with these districts. So they're transparent in the sense that this is a very public process that we must go through. We need to get petitions and support from our hotels to even proceed with the process. And once we reach that milestone, we have to come to City Council for a hearing process, and the hotels will all be noticed and be very well informed about the process. They're also reliable in the sense that we need to provide the TID's services with the funds as outlined in the legally binding district plan. We would also propose that the TID come forward every year with an annual report that would state the services that were provided in the year prior, any funds that are being carried over year to year, and the specific services that we provided in the next year. So often in my line of work, I hear the question, this here sounds like another tax. So I want to define a little bit the variations between the tax and the assessment or the fee. So unlike a tax, there is a defined term with the assessment. So if we say that the assessment is going into place on January 1st and it ends 10 years later, the hotels then know exactly when the assessment will be in effect. Also, unlike a tax, it needs to benefit those that pay it. So it's also managed, governed by those that pay it. So this TID would have a board of directors comprised of those paying the assessment. And there's also the accountability aspect where we have to provide the services. We must assess the amount that we've stated within the specific term as outlined in our district plan.
So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the current lodger's tax that I know you all know about. Currently, the lodger's tax generates between $500,000 and $600,000 annually, which allows Visit Longmont to provide those core destination marketing services for the city and our community. This includes hosting and creating engaging content on our main consumer website, visitlongmont.org. We provide on-site visitor center services to travelers that arrive here in Longmont and social and digital media content. We also invest in visitor and market research and travel trends to inform our marketing strategies and provide economic data. This current budget is solid and allows us to provide these core services well without spreading ourselves too thin. The challenge is in refining our marketing efforts to be able to effectively reach new customers or try new campaigns. Here's the return we are seeing with our current efforts. These core destination marketing services have attracted nearly 600,000 visitors to Longmont annually, infusing $205 million into the city through their direct spending. Visitors are also contributing overall $277 million in total economic impact to Longmont, and 3,000 plus jobs are supported by the tourism economy. Without continued investment in growing Longmont's tourism economy that is generating this visitor spending, residents would be spending additional dollars to maintain current services. Imagine what we could do and the return we could bring back to Longmont with new campaigns targeting new markets and attracting new visitors. So what is the opportunity? Why are we here talking to you today about another funding model? A Longmont Tourism Improvement District with an additional assessment, so not replacing the lodger's tax, captured from Longmont hotels would allow Visit Longmont to focus funds on, for example, and these are all draft ideas that we've heard feedback from our hotel partners, group and event sales to increase overnight visits and economic activity, freeing up funds potentially for destination development in the future and partnering with the city's economic development efforts, or specific campaigns, for example, targeting international visitors who we know through research like to visit national parks and forests and spend more time and money in destinations when traveling. With our current budget, Visit Longmont is not able to invest in any of these strategies at a level where we could really move the needle and make an impact. As you are considering this opportunity, I just want to pause and acknowledge your public service during, I know what are some interesting times, and I know you're starting to go into your budget process, which thank you for sitting through those meetings and considering those ideas. Our big picture for Longmont tourism, I believe, is one for everyone, as we believe travel should be nonpartisan. Everyone loves to take a vacation, everyone loves to travel. Our role at Visit Longmont as a destination marketing and management organization is to promote our community as an attractive travel destination and as a dynamic place to live and work, as well as visit. And sometimes relocation or business investment starts with a visit. Through the impact of travel and as stewards of our destination, we can strengthen Longmont's economic position and provide additional opportunity for Longmont by investing in this added value model or tourism improvement district. What we are asking you, the members of our city council, today, Visit Longmont along with our hotel partners and supporters who have joined us today, is for continued support of our tourism community through a Longmont TID. A Longmont Tourism Improvement District would, again, collect assessments from overnight visitors through hotel stays, enhance our existing public-private partnership with you and city staff, while creating a long-term supplemental and added value revenue source to promote Longmont to travelers. I'm going to turn it over again to Kelly just to walk through what has been proposed for a budget and some of the key elements of a TID.
So earlier this year, I worked with Sarah to look into the feasibility of forming a tourism improvement district. So through that process, we engaged a steering committee of stakeholders and held a series of meetings to introduce the idea of the TID to our hotels. This budget was brought forth and supported by a majority of the hotels to have majority of the funds spent on sales and marketing and the next destination development. And then we always build in the administration, a contingency and reserve, and then a collection fee for the city's admin costs to collect the assessment on the TID's behalf. So the hotels are proposing a 2% assessment on short-term rental stays, which would generate roughly $450,000 on an annual basis. So some other draft elements that we did vet with the majority of our hotel partners is we are proposing to include all lodging businesses with 10 rooms or more in the city of Longmont. And the reason why we say 10 rooms or more is we're not looking to assess the short-term rentals. So by saying 10 rooms or more, that automatically omits any short-term rentals. We're just focusing on the hotels. We're also proposing to have a 10-year term. If the end of the 10-year term comes and the hotels continue to support those services, they can go through the process again to renew the district if they vote to do so. Again, those services are sales and marketing, destination development, activities that will generate more overnight stays, especially in the off-season periods. And again, activities to attract groups, meetings, and events. So we would have a board of directors for the TID. We're looking at 5 to 9 folks that would have a seat at the table. And those directors would be those paying the assessment. So it goes back to those paying the assessment are responsible for managing and governing the TID. However, they would go into contract with Visit Longmont to oversee the day-to-day of the TID and make sure that all of the services are implemented in alignment with the district plan. So our proposed path to get to the TID, with Longmont being a charter city, we are proposing to do this via home rule. So that would be a 2-step process that we'd be looking at. The first would be passing an enabling ordinance. So this enabling ordinance would carve out the path, pave the way and set out the process on how to form the TID. With this, we'd be looking to cast a wide net for future opportunity with the TID. So this enabling ordinance could allow other business sectors to join the TID, the existing one TID, at any time if we modified the district. So then we would also modify the board of directors so that they would have a seat at the table and represent those new business sectors. So restaurants could join, breweries, or anything of that nature. The second step would be the actual TID formation ordinance. So once the enabling ordinance has been passed, paving the way, we would then pass the TID formation ordinance, which is specific to the TID that we're talking about tonight. It would set out the assessment, the term, and the services.
Thank you for considering this additional investment in Longmont's tourism community. And I thought it was so complimentary that the Sister Cities proclamation and groups were here at this meeting along with our presentation, as tourism growth is about economic return and economic activity, but it's also about cultural exchange and education and sharing our stories. And I think travel has that real potential to bring communities together and people together, as you all articulately presented in the Sister Cities proclamation. The Visit Longmont Board of Directors has passed a resolution in support of a TID and recommends this funding model be established through the City Council ordinance process, as Kelly just briefly outlined. And we are gathering letters of support from our hotel partners. Thanks again for your time, Mayor and council members, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Just some of the terminology being used, I'd like to clarify a little bit. So when you say an assessment, does that indicate a mill levy added to the properties that would be participating? Because that's generally when we talk about assessments, what we think about.
It would be an assessment on the business owner, and so we would be defining the business owner as those owning lodging businesses with the 10 rooms or more.
Right, and the function of the assessment, how does the assessment work is my question. How do you determine what their contribution is?
So it would be 2% on the room night stays.
2% on their room
On the
night
room
stays.
rate, exactly.
So it would not be a mill added to their property?
No.
Okay, sorry, that the way that term works for me is a lot different.
Yeah, it's actually the customer that's going to be paying the additional fee as part of their bill.
Right, it's a pass-through.
Pass-through,
I get the point of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could pass through on, you could put mill levies on things and pass those through to home buyers, and as we know about metro districts. Anyway, the point being is I was curious, just based on the use of that terminology, what you meant by that. So it's a percentage, a flat percentage, it seems like, not depending on.
That's what's been proposed, is a 2% percentage on room nights to the business owner, but it can be passed legally onto the customer.
Sure, I understand that. And so then, when omitting short-term vacation rentals, does that not inherently benefit them that they do not have to participate?
So in proposing a tourism improvement in district for Longmont, we wanted to focus first on our strong hotel partners, but not eliminate the future possibility of including short-term rentals. And the idea around just focusing on hotel partners is we want to have successes right away. But yes, in theory, promoting Longmont hopefully trickles down and benefits other accommodations like short-term rentals, and that they aren't paying that additional assessment. But the way we're proposing to lay it out is that in the future, we could include other sectors in the tourism improvement district.
So hypothetically, you could include short-term vacation rentals?
In the future, yes.
Well, at any time you could?
At any time, yes.
Right. Okay. So I just, it feels to me that it kind of is a disadvantage to the hoteliers in that sense. But just because the short-term vacation rental doesn't have to pass through that additional 2%.
Correct. Also, with the formation of the board, with the Tourism Improvement District ordinance, focusing on hotels in the first step, those payers sit on the board and manage and guide the program, where you could argue short-term rentals or any other business sector at that time doesn't have that engagement.
And this is also intended to be an addition to the lodger's tax, not
Correct.
a replacement for the lodger's tax.
Correct.
Okay, well, we didn't get a full synopsis. We just had the slides in our packet to review
Correct.
before you. And so that, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. And hopefully a next step is that we would be able to share with you at some time a draft ordinance.
All right, well, those are the conclusion of my questions. Thank you.
Councillor Martin?
Yes, I actually, Sarah, you just kind of answered my main question, which is, will you be bringing a draft ordinance, or would you be expecting the city staff to draft the ordinance? And the second part of the question is, you have two ordinances. Would the draft, the establishing ordinance, or the first ordinance, the defining ordinance, I think you called it, would it establish a proposed scale of rates for other types of businesses to join the tourism improvement district? So, for example, restaurants would have a 1% surcharge on their bills or something. I mean, would that all be defined in the defining ordinance?
I'm going to let Kelly answer that question, just as she's had more experience with the ordinance process.
Hello. So we have actually already have an enabling ordinance draft started. We've sent that to city staff and we're working through the review process on that. And our firm, who also worked with Fort Collins to form their TID, went through a similar or pretty identical process. We would also draft the formation ordinance. Your second question, yes, we would write into the enabling ordinance, the one that carves out the path of how other businesses could be assessed. So it could be a percentage of sales tax or something to that effect, or it could be put onto the customer's receipt. It could even be a flat fee.
All right, thank you.
Councillor McCoy?
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Sarah and Kelly, I appreciate your work here, and I like it, and the general idea. There's just two issues, and one came up earlier. With the owners of the multiple, maybe short-term rentals, if they meet the threshold of 10 units, are we now? Do they fall into this category where they should be collecting this at that point? That seems to me like a pretty fair assessment. And then the other one is along the ideas of restaurants. The whole concept of kind of a pillow tax is to go ahead and get somebody who's coming into the community to pay these pay a tax to help support some of the bigger projects at the community. And you pointed out how that works and how that's benefited Longmont and brought new tourism activities here to Longmont. And I think that's good. But when you start looking at restaurants, oftentimes restaurants are really have people that are visiting them that are not coming from outside, and it concerns me when we start going down that path, and I kind of feel like we maybe need to get those questions answered or consider seeing how this works before we have that, and have that as an add-on later if we're going to go down that path, because I'm a little uncomfortable with that, because that really kind of defeats the purpose of that. And so I guess my major question is the short-term rental, if you have multiple short-term rentals.
Mayor Peck and Councilmember McCoy, thank you for the question. So the draft ordinance is very much draft, and we hope to work with the city to refine it. If with more research we find that there are short-term rentals that have more than 10 units, I think we can certainly adjust the language in the draft ordinance so that we are focusing on hotel partners, which is really our goal to be successful right away, so that we want other sectors to want to join in the future. And then I think to your point about restaurants or other sectors, the draft ordinance right now was crafted so that there is an opportunity to include other sectors in the future, but you pointed out correctly that a lot of our restaurants serve residents, and so I'm not sure that would be the first sector I would focus on as a next step. We've talked about potentially some of the smaller breweries that might benefit from added marketing to visitors, but again, breweries also serve residents. And the focus of destination marketing, or in this conversation, is about attracting visitors to help support our services and create more of a tax base.
All right, thank you very much.
Councilor Christ.
Sarah, how many hotels do we have in town?
Thank you, Councilmember Chris. I believe we have 13 and then 14 with the new hotel, but I can make sure that that number is accurate. But I believe we have 13 hotels.
And are all of them interested in joining this?
Kelly mentioned our listening sessions that we held, and you sat in on one of them. So we have reached out to all but 2 of our hotel partners. I'm having meetings with them this week, actually. And in general, the hotel partners are positive. We have a hotel partner representative here from the Hilton Garden Inn. Those owners want to be engaged in our positive, and we already have a letter of support from a representative from the Marriott properties. So that includes 3 of our hotels. And with the Hilton Garden Inn, that's 4. So I would say, in general, the hotel partners have been positive towards moving forward this conversation.
Okay. All right. So I have I have a couple of concerns. One, I think it helps to have the goals of the program to be pretty specific, so that people know what kind of value they can expect and what they're contributing to. When I look on page 10 at the items that Fort Collins was using, I found that the first 3 were probably useful, and the strongest was that there's a special event transportation. I thought that was the most specific and also very useful. But the last 2 I thought maybe probably would be an employment issue. The thing with these districts is they tend to be a little bit like HOAs, in that you have a third-party administrator, that fee can change every year, so sometimes you have a bit of a diminishing return there in your investment. And then if you have 13 hoteliers and you have the maximum number of board members to be 9, it always seems like it's the smaller organizations who are less represented, and probably the ones that need the most benefit. So those are my concerns. And I know you've heard these before because I'm on the Visit Longmont board, so I'm just sharing that publicly. Okay, so and then I guess my question to staff would be, is that at all a burden to administrate receive the tax and take care of,
So we currently receive
the lodger's tax.
the lodger's tax in, and we run it through the process. In terms of breaking that out, I don't know how much work that'll be, but it is more of an automated process right now. What I was going to jump in and say is we've had some preliminary conversations, but we haven't really dug into the ordinances and these other issues because we didn't want to outrun council on this one. And we wanted to get council direction is, do you want to proceed with this? And as we do that, then we'll start digging into some of these issues that you're talking about ordinance language, you know, what it means in terms of additional workload and how we approach it. Jim is saying it's not a burden at this point. He just teams me. But again, we've had preliminary conversations. The real work will come in now if council directs us to move forward. But we didn't want to spend too much time on this until council directed us to move forward with this.
Yeah, the thing about administration, it usually takes about 20% off the top for just administrating the thing. So we're looking at maybe 360,000 that you'd collect, just given your prospective budget that you put up in your slides. And then I'm just wondering, what would be the difference between a TID and say an association model, like the Association of Realtors or whatever we have, where it is voluntary to join and have membership, and then have rates that you use and you benefit from.
So a big differentiation is the TID would be compulsory. With other associations, they can opt in, opt out. If we did a voluntary mechanism, it's difficult to administer varying types of contracts. So the TID is compulsory, and there's a level of oversight from the city, which is quite different from an association, if that answers your question.
It does. We do have some hotels that their customers are locals, not necessarily tourists, and or maybe more on the reasonable side or a very affordable side for those who need temporary housing. So it seems like they would be included in this as well, and that might be burdensome to those. So maybe there might be some opt-in or opt-out.
And we would also place exemptions on the stays. So typically we mirror the lodger's tax exemptions, mainly for ease of administration, but also those that are exempt from lodging tax stays aren't really those that we're targeting for the TID. So we could also exempt any stays of that nature too.
Well, okay, so for instance, I've just heard there are 10 families from the Alexander fire that are in hotels right now, and those are locals. They may be there for a little while.
We did something similar in California with the California wildfires.
Mm-hmm.
We had folks staying in the hotels and we exempt those stays, so it's certainly possible.
Yeah, okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, I do have one that Councillor Chris brought to my attention. When I look at your draft key elements and the budget, you do have administration in there. I was wondering, is there any dollars in there to pay for city staff time in that administration for whatever they have to do for the TID?
I think there's a line item in there. I forget what percentage it is, but again, these are draft numbers, but that would hopefully help cover the cost of city staff time.
Okay, thank you. And are you, according to our council you didn't really need any information, but do you want direction tonight to continue with this work?
Yeah, I would like council to give us direction if you want us to continue and bringing this forward to you all in the form of an ordinance.
Okay.
I would like that direction, because then that clears a path really for Eugene, myself, Jim, and Joni to begin in earnest in the conversations in terms of what this looks like. Because thus far it's been really high level. Bringing them in at this point so then council can direct us to proceed or not.
Okay, let's just start with everyone saying yay or nay whether you want them to proceed. Thumbs up if we want them to proceed with it. Okay, so that is, what did Marcia do? I didn't see. Were you a thumbs up?
I was still pondering, so my thumb has not appeared.
Go ahead, ponder away.
Yeah. I was thinking I'd like to give this direction in a week after we've had a chance to see if anybody writes us a letter. I have reservations about doing it with anything but hotels. So, I'm concerned about how easy it is to go to the next step, I guess. But I guess I'll vote yes for taking it to the next level.
That's a good point. And Sarah, can you address that? The next step in the ease of bringing in short-term rentals, would that or would that not have to come back to council to okay?
That would need to be written into the ordinance, but if if short-term rentals or any other kind of sector wanted to be included, we'd have to amend the ordinance.
And that would come back.
Any change to this to include any other group would have to come back to the city council for approval.
Okay.
When they talk about the enabling ordinance, it just says other groups can be involved in this. It's the ordinance that activates it that then creates that for other organizations, and that will require council approval and 2 readings and conversations with the group. So
Okay.
there is a process that they have to go through. It's not something that you can just snap your fingers and bring in other people.
Okay. Councilor Martin, did that alleviate any of your anxiety, I guess, about?
Well, we'll have to see what the ordinance looks like, but I guess we would,
Of course.
I'm willing to see a draft ordinance.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, Councilor Christ, are you still wanting to wait on this, or until after the budget, you would like to wait?
We could wait till.
Councilor Christ, then I'll call on you. Yeah, we're just giving direction.
Okay, so
Yes
I
or
guess
no?
I would like to wait until after we've gone through the budgeting process, just for ease of staff. We'll have a better idea of what we're working with. And it gives you, as an organization, time to work on the ordinance as well.
So you do have your directions. It's 6-1 to go forward. Continue your work.
Thank you very much for your time, Mayor, council members.
Thank you. Okay, the next thing on our agenda then are updates on the Transportation Mobility Plan and Vision Zero. And I see Phil Greenwald and, is that Becky?
I like that new word you just made up. Transportility.
There you go, mobility and transportation. There you go. Transportility.
It's weird. Got shut down.
Well, good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Phil Greenwald. I'm the Transportation Planning Manager with the City of Longmont. It's good to see you again, of course, and we do have some interesting news for you about where we are with the Transportation Mobility Plan and Vision Zero. So we'll get right into it here. I wanted to just chat a little bit too about, we have our new Vision Zero coordinator, Kemi Edson, and she'll be presenting that portion of the presentation tonight. So we're glad to have her on board and helping us out. Also with us is Carly Seif from Fair & Piers, our consulting firm on the Transportation Mobility Plan. So I'm very excited to have her here to help me do the presentation. So I appreciate that. So what we're here tonight to talk about first is just that Transportation Mobility Plan and where we're kind of at, where we're going. And so wanted to put that together for you as far as this presentation goes. And then talk about Vision Zero, where we've been and where we're going with that, and how we're going to integrate the two plans together. So the Transportation Mobility Plan to start is really in kind of its second phase, phase 2 of the project. And we're really at that point where we're taking draft recommendations back to the public. And we're in a survey format right now where we're asking the public for other feedback beyond what we got from an earlier open house. So that's exciting. And that public engagement is going on now. We really do want to get back into the idea of the recommendations for walking, biking, transit, and driving. So putting all those those things together and kind of moving on to the next session. And then working with you in the winter of 2024, maybe into 2025 to get your feedback and talk about adoption of that. So with that, I'll turn it over to Carly to talk about where we've been in the process.
Great, thank you, Phil. So we had lots of great feedback, over 1,000 points of engagement in the winter of this year. And so we've been working to incorporate what we heard from the community as well as through our existing conditions analysis into our recommendations that you'll see here today. So we had an interactive online map that many of you may have seen where folks could drop pins and lines to identify places where they had areas of concern for walking, biking, transit, and driving. And all of those spatial recommendations have been considered and incorporated into our draft recommendations for infrastructure improvements. We also heard a desire to prioritize investments in walking, biking, and transit. So we're really taking a strong focus on those multimodal improvements rather than increasing roadway capacity. We also heard a theme about overcoming barriers to walking, biking, and taking transit. So not only are we proposing infrastructure improvements, but programs and policies as well to help support, incentivize, and encourage those alternative modes. And then lastly, vision and goals. So it's important to set the framework and create that kind of long-term vision for what the future of transportation will be. So these goals have each been incorporated and will be incorporated into the prioritization of our project list by tying goals to performance measures. So I'll walk through each mode and at a very high level talk about our data-driven and community-based process for identifying recommendations to help achieve the goal for that mode. So for walking, the goal is to complete the sidewalk network by filling in gaps in sidewalks for where there are missing sidewalks and upgrading sidewalks that are deficient. So they're either too narrow and they don't meet the Americans with Disability Act width, or they don't have that right grade. So there are cracks, which makes moving in a wheelchair or in a stroller more difficult. So our process is to prioritize locations to upgrade sidewalks that are deficient and to fill in missing gaps. So in the next slide, you'll see our results of our analysis where we prioritized different locations in the city. We used key destinations, so things like parks, grocery stores. We used equity indices and as well as the volume and the posted speed limit on streets. Do the streets have transit in order to kind of rank different corridors. So as the city gets funding, they know where to invest that funding first to complete the sidewalk network. Moving on to, oh, sorry. On the biking side, we're looking to make biking more comfortable, so accessible for all ages and abilities, whether you're 8 or 80, that you feel comfortable biking anywhere in Longmont. So that requires us to upgrade places where we have existing bike facilities that aren't meeting this level of traffic stress analysis that we've performed, as well as identifying locations for new bike facilities to create a connected network. So here's our draft network. You'll see some pictures on the right are showing facility types that we're vetting through the community to make sure that members of the community feel like protected bike lanes. That top image are appropriate in Longmont for higher speed, higher volume roadways, and that has that protected vertical barrier between people biking and people driving. And then the image on the bottom shows a neighborhood bikeway. So this is on low speed, low volume local roadways where bikes will share the roadway with vehicles. So we want to make sure that that network is complete and there aren't any missing gaps and the facility types are appropriate. And then on the transit side, we want to make sure that people can travel by transit conveniently and reliably in Longmont. So our goal here is to identify priority corridors for investing in local fixed route bus service. So we're acknowledging that there's a lot of investment in transit currently. On the regional side, there's First and Kaufman, Maine, BRT to Boulder. So really great kind of movement happening. On the other side, on the kind of neighborhood scale, great work on the microtransit launch coming this fall. I know in our community outreach, folks are really excited to see microtransit. It's really that space in the middle, the local fixed route service, where we want to focus additional recommendations. So we're seeking feedback from the community now about what corridors they want to prioritize additional fixed route transit service on that can be more cost effective to move large amounts of people than maybe that microtransit service would be. And then the other, one more thing on the transit side, we heard from the community that they want to see increased frequency as well as increased span. So that means more service either in the early mornings or in the late evenings on certain routes. So we're honing those recommendations through this next round of feedback by asking people which routes do they want to see more frequency on and what times of day do they want more service.
We also did want to be very clear that microtransit is planned to starting in September. So we are starting that microtransit service in September. It'll cover the entire city, the whole planning area. We're also talking with RTD about giving us permission and getting some feedback on serving I-25 and 119, so we can get to that new mobility hub that's being built by CDOT right now. But we have to make sure we can use RTD money for that. So.
Hold on, Phil. Part of that is also when Phil created, when they went through the, what was the process we used?
We used the
Best Value.
BVA, sorry.
BVA. The BVA approach. One of the things that they did in this is actually give us the ability to utilize this contract with other governmental entities. So in the event that other governmental entities want to participate, because of the way they bid it out, they can piggyback onto this contract, which does give us the ability to really, over time, look at a more regional microtransit approach. So I know, Mayor, you and I have talked to others. Once they're done with this, we can really officially start talking about how other jurisdictions can piggyback on this bid.
And then just to summarize next steps, so some of you may have been aware we did an open house 2 weeks ago now. We had great attendance and great feedback from the community there, and we're continuing to seek feedback through an online survey. We'll also be at the farmers market doing a number of focus groups, such as our center earlier this evening. So looking forward to continuing to gather feedback from various members of the community through both online and in-person events. And then, as Phil mentioned, end of 2024, early 2025, we'll be finalizing the plan.
Alrighty. Thank you. I'm going to take over. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for having us come and give our first official Vision Zero update. So as mentioned, I'm Cammie Edson. I was hired about 6 months ago, so I'm going to kind of let you know what we've been working on in our first 6 months, sort of where we're currently at, and what's coming next. So as you know how we got here, last year you all adopted a resolution in October to adopt Vision Zero as a way to sort of lead our future transportation management system. Why it matters is it really puts the emphasis and focus on prioritizing pedestrians and bicyclists in our future transportation work, as you know. And that is not something that has historically always happened in transportation planning. Typically, we have spent more time talking about traffic volume, and we're shifting that from a level of service and traffic to a level of safety for all modes. So traffic will still matter. We'll still, deal with it and try to, make it better, but we're also going to make sure that the other modes and our most vulnerable road users are also prioritized in these conversations around what projects happen, when, where, and why. And the goal, as you know, is we have set as a city to reduce our fatal and serious injury rates to 0 by 2040. That is what the program has been tasked to do, so we will work on that. Just a little bit more, this slide shows somewhat of what the traditional transportation management system has looked like. And across the country, from the federal level to state level to local levels, we are shifting funding and prioritizing and recommendations and guidelines and standards to really focus on this new safe system model. To give you an example, this is what the safe system model is. And this is how we will do or operationalize Vision Zero. On the outside, you'll see there's 6 elements or 6 strategies of what matters in Vision Zero, which is really that death and serious injuries are unacceptable. In the traditional transportation model, they were seen as inevitable. We are now saying they are unacceptable. Humans make mistakes. That is true. They are vulnerable, so we need to make sure that we build in protections and redundancy in protections. So when one system might fail or something happens, there still be some additional protections for those vulnerable road users. Responsibility is shared. It's something that internally we've talked about the Vision Zero Center of Excellence, and that we will be working across all of the departments within the city and all the different working groups to include them in learning about what Vision Zero is and being a part of the conversation of designing how do we want to transform our transportation management system, and that all of our different groups will be involved in that. So more to come on that. It's shifting from being reactive to problems to being proactive and trying to prevent problems. So we will continue to deal with issues as they come up and kind of be in reaction. Always, that will always be needed, but we're going to put more emphasis and additional resources on being proactive and looking at what are these systemic approaches that we can apply to prevent similar situations happening in other parts of our community when they happen somewhere else. So those are sort of the systems pieces you see on the outside. How we will do Vision Zero, it's really organized by the SAFE system, these 5 buckets you see on the inside. Looking at safer vehicles, safer speeds, safer roads, post-crash care, and safer people. We are going to be doing concerted and very specific engagement with our community in these 5 buckets, as well as internal. So we'll do just as much internal engagement as we will external engagement to make sure that when we're ready to launch and implement Vision Zero strategies and safety countermeasures, which I'll introduce in a little bit, that we have internal buy-in and internal understanding of what's going on, as well as our community members also having buy-in and understanding what's going on. One of the things that I think is important to understand when we're talking about Vision Zero is really it's an injury prevention approach. It really adopts a public health prevention approach. And one of the ways that we need to think about Vision Zero is to reduce the number of fatal and serious injuries. We need to reduce the kinetic energy that is exchanged in crashes. So when we start thinking about what are these future strategies and implementation and safety countermeasures we employ on our roads and streets, we need to constantly be thinking about how are we reducing the kinetic energy in that crash, so when it does occur, you're more likely to survive it. That is how we're going to bring our fatal and serious injury counts down. It's not about reducing total crashes, though that would be wonderful, but we might see an uptick in property damage or minor crashes in exchange for bringing down our fatal and serious injury crash counts. So just to kind of plant that seed, you'll hear a lot more as we talk about Vision Zero about reducing the kinetic energy exchange and how do we operationalize that or bake that into our system when we're looking at planning and design work and implementation and construction. So kinetic energy, kind of a key message in Vision Zero. We kind of introduced these already, just it's a little bit clearer to see it. Those are those 5 buckets of how we will do Vision Zero, both internally and externally. One of the things that we've been working on in these first months of me being here is before launching a task force, which I know was part of my job description and what you all were hoping for, we are doing that is we needed to pull our baseline data together. Everyone is going to ask us about our fatal and serious injuries. And so one of the things we needed to look at is where are our fatal and serious injuries or crashes already occurring? So what we've been working on is creating 2 new maps. This is one of the first ones. The hot spots, the more yellow you see, is where we have more density and fatal and serious injury crashes occurring. This map also looks at our total number of crashes or fatal and serious injury crashes. It identifies the streets and the roads where they've occurred. It's a little hard to see, I know, on the screen now, but just for reference, the red dots are our fatal crashes, and the orangey dots are our serious injury crashes, and these have been compiled for the last 6 years. So this is what we're using as somewhat of our baseline data, our statistics. So from here, we'll be able to use this as a measuring point moving forward of are we adjusting our data. We have other baseline data. We're working with communications right now to get it sort of a compiled and presentable ways. So we'll be sharing more baseline data moving forward. But just so you all know, we are already working on getting an action plan pulled together. These first 3 let me back up a second. action plan components to make us eligible for future funding, whether it's from the federal or the states. They're basically saying, please have these 8 components. So we are going to make sure that our Vision Zero action plan covers the new kind of standard required components. We've already started working on the first 3. They're almost done. They're in draft form. The rest of them have all been started. There's been progress being made. So while we won't necessarily have our action plan done until we go through the community process and the process with staff to do all the engagement, just wanted to let you know that work has begun in all components of the action plan, and we will continue to see those through. I mentioned proven safety countermeasures. One of the things that we are going to look at is when do we apply each of these countermeasures, at what level of road type, what conditions. We'll be looking at our current design standards, build standards. They may match up already, they may not. So we'll be coming through and working with internal staff to propose what potential changes we might need to make sure that we are using these safety countermeasures as appropriate and when justified, I guess is the right way to say it. So I'm going to turn it back over to Carly to talk about how we're going to feather our Vision Zero plans together with the TMP.
I'll turn it over to Phil.
Oh, Phil's going to do it, sorry.
And I'll play the part of Carly then.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to integrate the plans. Please be patient with us and understand that we are going to put these plans together once we're done. We need to be done with the TMP first. As you see, that's going to be later in the winter, and then we're going to get going with the action planning piece of Vision Zero. But we are going to feather these together. They're going to be placed together and work together on in that way. So I just wanted to kind of go through how that's going to happen. We're looking at the Transportation Mobility Plan, or the TMP. It's really that higher level vision of the city's transportation plan, and it really talks about multimodal travel and how we kind of separate those modes and get people across town in those different modes. Vision Zero dives deeper into the safety and equity pieces of that, but please know that we'll do that in the TMP as well. But it gets a little gray there between the two plans, but we are putting them together. They're both plans are data-driven and community-based, so we are working with the community on all these different things and using the data behind it. And both plans will make Longmont more competitive for external or grant funding. So we're excited about that as well. Just to let you know that the TMP, we love to use the word roadmap, so I'm going to use it again here. TMP loves or identifies the roadmap, while Vision Zero gets us there safely. So those are kind of those pieces of putting all these things together. The tough one that I'll have to just read is Vision Zero will provide details on transportation system safety, prioritizing initiatives benefiting severe injury locations and vulnerable road users. So we will have those additional policies and the projects and the programming that go with the Vision Zero that'll be more robust and more detailed as we move along through that. And it'll provide additional project prioritization criteria. So we're going to have criteria as we build projects for the TMP, you'll be talking about the capital improvement program here in September, and how do we get those prioritized? So any questions would be wonderful to hear from you. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from staff? Councilor Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. With the TMP, I think it pretty much 100% hits my view of what should be prioritized. But I think some of my colleagues might share my general cynicism as far as making substantive changes to fixed bus routes. And so my question would be, is there really the availability to haggle with RTD on changing fixed bus routes?
Great question, Councilmember Rodriguez. And I do want to kind of go to the point of, I probably lean too much on it, but microtransit is one of those things that we're going to do as a city with a third-party vendor away from RTD, and it's going to fill in all those gaps that we've kind of looked at throughout the history of transportation mobility plans. We've called them different things in the past, multimodal transportation plans and things like that, but there's always been this gap to get people to those services, and so we think micromobility will help us with that. Also, with bus rapid transit coming in 2027 from RTD, they are working to get us additional bus routes, one that goes out east to all the different neighborhoods out there, as well as the Walmart that's on the east side of town within within Weld County, but also within the district. So that's one that we can work on. So there will be some changes from RTD, but I think our changes from the city of Longmont are the ones we'll lean more heavily upon.
And if I could jump in, one of the components of this when I've had conversations with Deborah Johnson is, again, RTD's funding, they put funding in for the first 3 years. I think everyone's incredibly interested to see what does microtransit do for the broader transportation route, and does it create the opportunity to have that conversation, because it's filling a void where we have limited ridership on certain routes. And my conversations with them they're definitely interested in seeing it and willing to have a conversation as we learn through the impact of microtransit in our community. So I think, is there an opportunity? I think they're willing to talk, but I think it's getting the data from microtransit and the other things that will help us in that conversation.
So just say in concept, with microtransit rolling out in September, will there be kind of alterations in the functioning of it so that you can check the data as to what the actual desire is for, say, expanding the time frame to later routes and earlier routes versus, the standard probably business hours that are currently run in our fixed bus route system?
Councilmember Rodriguez, yes, the idea is that there's going to be a very dynamic dashboard that's going to be public facing, so people can look at it. Anybody can look at it. I'll be looking at it hourly, probably, but we'll be checking to see how that ridership is going throughout the day. And exactly to your point, this is a dynamic system. We're paying a certain amount at this point. We have other people who want to put other dollars in to make it work at different times of the day. So those things are being talked about right now, but we do have it's a dynamic system that can change with demand.
Yeah, I'm super excited about both the TMP and the Vision Zero stuff. So great, good stuff. Great work.
Mayor Pro Tem Hidalgo Faring.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question, and it was back to addressing the, I believe it was the map, the heat map that had sections for underserved communities. So if you can go back to that.
Go back to that.
And it looked like, and maybe the next slide might be a clearer view of which ones are high priority areas down to the lower priority areas. I guess, how was it defined? What would be high priority, low priority?
So one of the first things we looked at, we had as you may be aware, the federal government has a lot of different databases that you can look at to kind of determine what they say are your equity-based areas in any given community across the country. And we had applied for an SS4A grant to bring us money to hire a consultant to do a more robust action planning process than what staff would have been able to do by ourselves with our current budget. And so one of the things they asked us to do was required to use those equity-based databases that they have compiled that is available, public-facing for anybody. So we actually took both of the databases that they offered up and said, you could use one or the other, but we have combined both of those federal databases into one to say, hey, where in Longmont, based on these, and they look at a number of different factors. They'll look at housing rates, job rates, employment rates, heat, safety, all sorts of different criteria go into these kind of conglomerate databases around equity. They've been put together to say, and essentially all of them basically identify the same communities within Longmont. So we use these to sort of say, hey, with the limited money that we have for Vision Zero right now, and to start with, we need to make sure that we're investing where we need to invest the most. So working with Carmen's team and community and neighborhood resources, using federal and state resources, we combined the data that was available to come up with these are our priority zones. So one of these things, I think the way that we imagine using it is in that prioritization criteria that Phil was mentioning. When we look at upcoming projects or future CIP projects that either haven't been started yet or are going to be identified in the TMP or in the Vision Zero process, we will be looking at, do they fall within these Vision Zero zones? We'll be looking, do they also fall in our high injury network? We'll be looking at other equity-based data, such as, are they close to schools? Are they close to senior housing? Are they close to food sources? All of those other key destinations. We'll use these different layers to ensure that we are prioritizing equity and safety in the projects we're choosing. So we developed it just as a new tool to give us a way to identify, we're gonna have to decide and how we're going to choose what comes first. So it was just our first layer we created, then we did the high injury network was our second layer created, and then the density map was the third layer we've created. So we'll keep doing more with mapping so we can better understand where do we start and where should we prioritize. But it is a conglomerate of a number of federal resources on equity that we put together to identify these Vision Zero zones.
Okay. So, because I look at, where the high priority zones are, with the exception of there's south of 23rd, the really high, the dark color ones, I mean, that's in my ward. And, looking at, in speaking with residents over on 11th and Gay, there's been a lot of concern. So those areas would be looked at first, is that, or?
And just to clarify, all of these are high priority
They-
zones?
yes.
Yeah, not one necessarily. So they are shaded just based on the outcomes that came, the number-based value. But
Okay.
it doesn't mean that we can't look at projects in other places, or that might be in the lighter purple,
Okay,
purpley bluey
yes.
color versus the darker blue.
Okay.
I think we wanted to just help narrow where do we start.
So it
We'll be
isn't that
looking-
one has more need over the other, as far as the difference in
think-
color?
I think what we're really trying to do is start that conversation with our task force and start
Okay.
to talk about different elements that might be part of that conversation and what the community wants to see us
Sure.
kind of focus on as well.
So for example, 21st and Main is a project that's just about to kick off. We can look at this map and say, obviously 21st and Main is falling in a high, or in one of our high priority zones. It's also falling in our high injury network. Like, we'll be able to
Yeah.
bring new data to these conversations to make sure that we are ensuring that vulnerable road users and that those communities are engaged with in these future projects while we're working on our action plan.
Got
And
it.
why we're getting more, direction on future policies or procedures. We can still use this data now to say, how do we make sure we start having those safety and equity-based conversations above and beyond those good conversations that were already happening around those topics. We're just bringing some more data to the table to say, yes, with our resources, this makes sense to prioritize a project here, or,
Okay.
invest here.
Yes. And are you finding, as you're looking closely at the data, and I'm kind of just eyeballing the dots, so it's hard to tell, are you finding a correlation that areas that are in those priority zones, they have higher instances of crashes and not necessarily fatalities, but just more accidents happening in those spaces?
I
Yeah.
think- Well, that's something we'll have to dig deeper into as
Yeah.
well, as we're starting to just look at the first level of data here.
Yeah,
As we start
that's-
that conversation, I mean, you can see the red and orange dots are around
They're
the,
kind of
around the city.
everywhere,
So,
yeah.
that's another thing that we need to start talking about is the vulnerable road users. What are they, who are trying to use this system? Are we trying to access transit? Are we trying to use a bike, get to a bike system, a safer bike system? So we're gonna have to go through that. That's gonna have to be part of that conversation, I think, too.
Okay.
And I think a lot of those conversations will be who's using it now and who's not using it now and
Okay.
why, but maybe would want to with improvements, right? That the usership will hopefully change the more
Change.
comfortable and safer we make it.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
And to add to that, it's as we take more of a systems approach to this, it's a layering of other resources that we have to pull data out and understand what's going on. So we've replaced our signal. We're in the process of replacing our signal system. They were recently testing some devices that we can attach to the signal system. And when we talk about the camera network that we're building, and they did a test at 17th and Main. And it basically gave us a data set to look at the number of times somebody ran a red light, how long they were in the intersection running the red light, what the speeds were that they were traveling at when they ran a red light. So as we continue to look at these other pieces, it's injecting those other data sets into the conversation to really start getting into what you're talking about and where are those really dangerous intersections and what behaviors are we seeing, because this is really the first time where we can get images and see what's happening and see how people are driving and see the speeds, which per council's direction as we look at technology is, does that start informing how we look at locations with potentially red light cameras or speed trailers so we can deal with some of these issues. You all also know when we get calls about somebody speeding in neighborhoods, we have the new devices where we can bring them in, and it's getting us all that data. All of that's starting to flow into this broader conversation, and that's why we're approaching it from a center of excellence perspective, so all the experts are together talking about this issue.
Okay. Councilor Christ.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. Ms. Edison, thank you. This is a lot of work for 6 months. So my compliments.
Thank you very much. You're
and,
welcome.
And Phil, thank you for getting some bus service on the east side.
Well, let's wait till we see it, but thank you very much, Councilmember.
So a couple of questions. How soon is the 21st and Main project going to get started?
That's a great question, Councilmember Christ. The design work is happening now, so we are under design. We do not have the construction dollars yet, but once we have a better idea of how much money this is going to cost, then we can go out for those grant dollars for those real costs.
Great. And Ms. Edison, how soon will the task force be starting for Vision Zero?
Great question. I should have mentioned, we just hired our Vision Zero community engagement specialist. He's in the back of the room, Dylan. There we go. So Carmen and I work together. He is going to be housed in community and neighborhood resources, but he's also partially dedicated to Vision Zero to help increase our capacity to do the community engagement work that we were just talking about. So together, he and I, once he gets onboarded, our first order is to get the invite out to invite task force members. We have been collecting interested names for people who've been interested this whole time. So we already have a nice pot of community members interested. We're still seeking new members. So we hope to launch that within the next month or so, as get our first meeting scheduled to start talking with community members around what is Vision Zero, what is the action plan, how they can all help and be a part of that process. So we will be launching it hopefully within the next month. Just give us a little time to get to get him on board, and our schedule's aligned and we'll be up and running.
Nice.
Jump in on the 21st and Main conversation. I did throw a bit of a wrinkle into that discussion. So they are moving forward with it, but when we look at all of these concepts and pedestrian safety, one of the things that I challenge them with is, how are you going to handle pedestrians? Is it going to be a pedestrian underpass? And if it is, we need to use SEPTED principles in terms of how we design that, because we have found that our pedestrian underpasses have created issues in different areas of the community. So I did add that as a bit of a wrinkle to say we need to really evaluate what we're building and how we're building it to ensure that we don't have an unintended consequence like we've seen at the pedestrian underpass on Hover or the one at 119 that's taking a lot of resources. So they started. I just wanted to also hedge and say I threw a wrinkle into it and ask them to look at something else, because we need to be really thoughtful in this process, not only on everything they're talking about, but how does it impact the communities that are immediately adjacent to these areas, because we can build things that make a situation worse than it already is. And so they're bringing that into the conversation as well.
Good, yeah. So my last question is, how are we going to know what demand would be for microtransit after 8 p.m. or before 6 a.m. if we don't offer that service?
Well, Councilmember Christ, I'm sure I will be getting the calls. So I will take those calls very seriously, and we'll make sure we follow up on that and work with our provider to make sure that we cover that if we need to. And again, there's the Downtown Development Authority is very much watching this as well, and that's the kind of the other group I've been talking about as far as bringing some other resources to the table, and they're very, very interested in how that works, especially after 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea to get other municipalities involved as well. So we're on the right track here, I think. Very impressed.
We don't want to talk about track.
Okay.
Tracks, yeah.
We don't.
Yes, we do not want to do that. Good catch. Doesn't look like there are any more comments or questions, and you don't need direction tonight. Cammie, welcome. That was a great presentation.
Hey, thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you very much for this. Very interesting. So we are now on our very last agenda item, which is public educational and government programming services. So this is going to be, oh, thank you. There is Assistant City Manager Sandy Cedar.
Why, thank you, Mayor Peck. Thank you for the introduction. I'm here tonight to give you a little bit of history and background on the public educational and governmental programming contracts. I think, Mayor, you mentioned in your motion on July 9th to bring back the people who are doing the video for these meetings and other meetings. There's a lot more to that contract, so I have a copy of it with me, so feel free to ask any questions about what that looks like, but I'll go through it briefly tonight as well.
Perfect.
So just to give you a little bit of history, and maybe I'll start with a little bit of grounding. At the July 9th meeting, the City Council voted to add an item on the agenda, this item, to discuss how to award the contract for video streaming services, referring to the public educational and government programming contract that is currently held by Longmont Public Media. Just in the way of background, and I think I alluded to this a little bit last week during the open forum, but prior to 2018, when cable was new, think back, when cable services were new, cable companies came to Longmont asking to use our right-of-way to actually drop their cables into the ground and to be able to use that to provide cable services to residents. As part of that agreement, it had to go to a vote of the people. Part of their discussion was, we'll give you a TV channel, we'll give you an ability to do public educational and governmental programming, we'll even give you some funding to be able to purchase capital goods. That was voted in by the voters. I feel like it was late 1980s, perhaps.
I know.
And one of the stipulations was that the council would then determine how that PEG money would roll. That's why this contract is one of the only ones that that is exempted from purchasing code. There are a couple other ones, but that's why this one is a council decision only and does not go through our normal purchasing process.
Okay.
At the September 25th, 2018 meeting, council asked, after years and years and years of contracting with the Cable Trust, we used to do 10-year contracts with them to provide that PEG programming and to run the TV station, et cetera. In 2018, the City Council asked us to survey residents to find out what they would like to see in public programming and to run an RFP for those services. There was a realization that cable franchise dollars were shrinking, and so the idea of a competitive request for proposals process was appealing to the council and asked us to run, a purchasing process for these services. The Longmont Observer at the time, now named Longmont Public Media, won that bid basically because of their membership model as well as all the services that they were willing to provide. And I should back up, we did a pretty large public involvement process around what do people want to see in their public access TV channels. And we have used that information iteratively in the contracts since then. So we conducted that public survey, those public meetings, and in 2019 conducted that RFP. As I mentioned, Longmont Observer, now LPM, was the successful bidder 2 years ago. Pardon me, last year you decided that you wanted to run a 2-year contract instead of a single-year contract. And so this 2024 is year 2 of that contract with Longmont Public Media. When it was first awarded in 2019, the award was for 25% of the franchise fees. Last year, when you directed the 2-year contract, that was for 50% of the franchise fees. So Longmont Public Media's contract right now is about $305,000, but it's dependent on what fees come in. The estimated amount for 2025 is actually only $280,000, which is 50% of the franchise fees. That's the estimate, because as we mentioned, as people cut the cord and find other ways to satisfy their video service needs, those franchise fees continue to go down. So with that, that's kind of the background and what's happened with Longmont Public Media's contract, as well as this process. Let me give you an idea of what their contract looks like. 50% of the franchise fees are allocated to do broadcasting, which means that they need to keep Channel 14, Channel 16, Channel 8, and 888, which is the HD channel, up and running with programming. That's basically local programming. They are required to record city council meetings, planning and zoning, other council meetings. Part of their proposal was that they offered to do all the other boards and commissions as well, so that's part of the contract as well. High-quality local shows, including sports, arts, history, entertainment programs around the town, style kinds of entertainment, including content in Spanish when available. How-to classes, performing arts programs, videos created by the Longmont staff and submitted to LPM. So when we put together a video and submit that to them, asking them to run that. Recording, I think we took that one out of the contract this year. Audio podcast, public podcast studio, live streaming radio station, and videos at the direction of city staff. So the videos at direction of city staff is 40 staff hours of time to do kind of whatever it is that the communications team thinks they need video-wise. This may be a video on ballot issues. It might be a video on how your next light services are going to be installed. It's all kinds of things that city staff needs as video services. 40 hours of their time is dedicated to those projects, in addition to the requirements to really keep the broadcast up and running. There's a community outreach requirement, marketing of their services, and metrics, which is why they present to you every quarter or so with how things are going. And that's it. So that's kind of how the contract is laid out. And so those are all the services that the community asked for that are requirements of Longmont Public Media to meet today. So with that, there's lots of different options for the council to pursue. You could renew the existing contract with Longmont Public Media if you chose for any duration that you choose. You could conduct a new request for proposals, and we would put that out kind of in a standard city format. We would probably use the same sort of criteria that we got from the community before, or you could ask us to re-ask what people are needing out of their public access TV today, or video, I guess. Or you could do anything else you'd like to do. So you could direct us to bring proposals to bring it in-house. You could direct proposals for pretty much anything that you would like. This contract is at the will of the city council. And with that, I'm here to answer questions.
So what is our, tell us one more time what our contract is, what, not the specifics of the contract, but how much are we paying for that contract?
So it's 50% of the franchise fees. So that was estimated for this year to be about $305,000. Now, that being said, if it comes in under $305,000, then Longmont Public Media has to deal with that. It's a percentage base.
Okay.
Yes. Like I said, the estimate for 2025 from Jim Golden is $280,000.
Okay. Does she? Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I have a few logistical questions about what would happen if we did open up the contract this year for bid. We're fairly late into the budget season. And so I hope Sandy remembers, it seems to me that both the process of producing the RFP, which could be simpler here because we have one, took a really long time. And then it also took a really long time to get the bids in and a really long time to evaluate the bids. So it does not seem feasible that if we, even if we rushed an RFP out by just saying, let's keep the same one we had before, which is problematic already because, as I understand it, the instigation for putting out a different proposal was a request from Tinkermill, and it was a much smaller scope of services than what the existing contract offers. So it seems funny, although I'd be fairly satisfied with keeping the same RFP if we had to do that. But my real question is, how would we expect to get this whole process done before the end of budget season in time to award the contract to the new to the winner, whoever it might be? It seems like a more intelligent decision would be to renew for for 2025 with the stipulation that for 2026 budget year we were going to open up for bids, and then everybody would have a good warning that this was going to be done, and we would get more bidders and more higher quality bids and time to re-examine the requirements. So, but that's just a suggestion. I also did have a question about the contract that, Sandy, I don't think you mentioned, which was the lease on the Carnegie building. Because that building is provided, I don't remember the amount of the lease, but it's like a $10 a year lease or something. And the LPM pays some of the shares some of the expenses with the city of managing the building. So if that lease went with the package and LPM didn't win, LPM would be done. LPM would have no place to go. And while it does generate revenue, because that's part of its, its charter, is that it has an increasing revenue, and it has done, considering the pandemic in the middle of the whole thing, a decent job of increasing its revenue over the years. But if it lost that lease, it would be extremely hard for the organization to go on. So what's the deal with, can you explain the details of that lease, and would it at least be possible to sever that award in recognition of the other kinds of services, diversity and inclusion and neighborhood coherence and all of that stuff that LPM provides as a public good?
Thanks, Councilmember Martin, Mayor Peck, and Councilmember Martin. To answer the question as far as the RFP goes, Longmont Public Media has this current contract until December of this year. That's the current contract. The current budget, ongoing budget, is 50% of the franchise fees. And so approximately in 2025, $280,000. So to some extent, it's agnostic from the budget unless you wanted to increase the budget. Now, I think that Longmont Public Media has asked for an increase in the budget for this contract. But if you chose to put it to RFP, we put things to RFP all the time that are agnostic of the budget, because we're talking about a contract that would start in January of 25. So you would set the budget, as an example, if the current ongoing budget is that $280,000 or 50% of the franchise fees, we would do the RFP on that with the goal of awarding it by January of ready to start in January of 2025. So it would not necessarily be involved in the budget process, except that there is certainly the request that LPM did make for 100% of the franchise fees. So that is a budget request at this time that Harold needs to consider as he's looking at all the budget revenues and challenges of this year.
So can I ask a question here then?
And then I'll answer that.
That's
question too.
There's some more questions to be answered here, Mayor Peck.
Can you address that, Harold, please, as far as the budget is concerned this year?
Yeah, so I've talked to some of you all about this, and we've hinted to the fact that this budget's going to be extremely challenging. It is going to be more challenging than I think we even thought heading into this. I can tell you that today I've made the decision not to fund any level 2 requests that are coming in from the organization, which means that this request by LPM is technically considered a level 2 request. And we're just not going to be able to fund that additional 50% in part of this budget process. When we look at the situations we're going to have to deal with, as I look to the future in this, giving you a hint of what you're going to see in 2 to 3 weeks is we're going to have to, over the next week or two, make some really significant decisions in terms of how we approach things. I've actually convened my direct reports tomorrow morning at 9 to start that process. But it's a challenge. And it's definitely related to the property tax reduction. And as we look at our chart over here to the right of me, I'm anchoring into core services as we look at the budget that we're going to present to you all.
Mayor Peck and Councilmember Martin, let me continue with my answers around the Carnegie Building as well.
Thank you.
So the Carnegie Building has been kind of a lockstep, but they are two separate agreements. The City Council, again, this is a city-owned building that we do lease to Longmont Public Media for $10 a year. Before that, we did lease it to the Cable Trust, Longmont Cable Trust, as they produced and broadcasted Channel 8 programming. So we've kept them in lockstep, but they are two separate documents. So you could sever the lease document if you chose to from the contract, if you wanted to. But traditionally, we've kept them together so that the broadcast area has a home to be able to broadcast from.
Okay, and then the last question, again, logistically, the process, as I recall, took much longer than we have between now and the end of the year, leaving aside the budget. How would we get it done?
Yes, Councilmember Martin, you're right. That process took an awfully long time. Part of it was because we did 3 months of public involvement as well. My guess is, and I think that Longmont Public Media has also done similar surveying, continual surveying, is that we use the data that we have today instead of doing a 3-month public process to find out what people are looking for. I don't feel that necessarily those items have changed tremendously, and when they have, we've incorporated those into the contract. So if we don't have a public involvement process and are able to just use the data and feedback that we have today from residents, that would certainly shorten the process. I feel like it would be tight, but we would be able to award before the end of the year.
Okay. Well, that answers my questions.
It
So
does
yes,
depend.
the council could sever, and yes, you think it could be done.
I do, but I would say it depends on how quickly the council decides to make a decision.
Right, and yeah, the other concern that I have is the quality of the outcome. If we rush the process, and especially since there's no way this year of expanding the award because of what the city manager just had to say, it seems like going through the whole process would be much more productive if council put it off until the next year and simply carried forward the LPM contract flat for one more year, but with notice given that we were going to, do a more elaborate bid-based process next time around. That just seems to be, under all of the circumstances that we have, it seems like the smartest thing that the council could do.
That is how we did it last time as well. Council made the motion in 2018. We ran the public process and RFP in 2019 for an award in 2020.
That's what I recalled, but I was not confident enough to say it.
I looked it all up.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute.
Thank you, Mayor Peg. I just wanted to know, how long will the process take? How long will we keep the RFP open? Because I think that also matters, right? We got 4 months, less than 4 months for this to happen. And I do agree with Councilor Martin about rushing the process. I don't think we should do that. But I don't know how long. I know last time we did the public engagement, but how long would we normally keep the RFP open so that anyone can apply?
Generally, it's about 3 weeks or so is how long we keep it open. But of course, that could be council's direction too. I mean, it is your contract and your process. So if you want to keep it open longer or shorter, we try to do a minimum of 2 weeks. But certainly 3 or 4 weeks, depending on the complication of the RFP, is not unusual. We would probably need 3 to 4 weeks to get the SOW out the door, would be my guess. the statement of work, scope of work.
So my question is there anything that you as staff would add to the contract, or would we stay with the basic one? Is there any more video that you would need? Or has the contract been fulfilled?
Yeah, that's a good question. From my perspective, the contract has been fulfilled.
Okay.
That's my responsibility to ensure that that happens. And you've seen the reports out from Longmont Public Media as they kind of tell you what their metrics are, et cetera. I did have a good conversation with the communications team over the last couple of weeks, because when we increased Longmont Public Media's hours from the 25% franchise fee to 50%, we also doubled their hours working on city video. And what I'm finding is that partnership works well, and there's not enough city staff resource to continue to, help with production and ideas and things like that. So it's not that there's not enough Longmont Public Media resource, there's not enough city resource to be able to help to really direct the videos and to help write scripts and put things together to keep them busy. So there was not a desire from the communications team to add hours, because I think we're working to fill the ones that we have today.
Okay. So we have 2 or 3 things going on here, 2 or 3. And I would like to say that when I looked at that Sergio and I sat down and I looked at it, I didn't get the feeling from staff that there was enough content that we needed to add to increase the amount of dollars they were asking for. So we need comments up here, direction. Marcia, Councilor Martin, do you want to make a motion to what you need? Or if you don't believe that needs to happen on council, I need input.
Well, I am willing to make a motion that we continue the contract on the same terms as it presently stands, because I think Sandy made a good point. We're not increasing the city staff either, and our communications organization underwent some changes this year, and so this really isn't a good year to mess with it for a variety of reasons. So I would move, if anybody is willing to second it, that we continue it, and we can take it up at the beginning of the next council, and do a robust process for 2026, a robust competitive process for 2026. But let's make it easy on the staff this year, because we don't have a lot of latitude, and we do have a lot of strain on the capacity of the city right now.
I don't know. Can you give me a one-line motion here, Marcia?
I move that we continue the existing contract for 2025 and resolve to put it out for bid for a competitive bid in 2026.
Okay, thank you for that. We're going to put it on hold because that was my error. We're only giving direction tonight. So
you can do a motion.
Okay.
To give direction.
Well, anyway, that would be
motion
my
and direction.
direction anyway.
Okay, hang on, Marcia.
Yes. Sorry, Mary Peg.
I'm getting different comments from counselors up here. So
You can make a motion to give direction, because you're not awarding the contract tonight. We will bring it back in a regular session if that's
Correct.
the case. If that's the direction you give us, then we would bring it back in a regular session.
Mayor Pro Tem Hidalgo Ferry.
Yeah, I think before we go on with the motion, I would like to kind of get some more feedback from council. So I agree that we do need to add it. There's a lot of echoing, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm hearing that as well. I can go
Okay.
turn that down if you'd like.
Okay.
Oh, it's you? Okay. And Mayor, I see Eugene saying, was there a second?
Is there a second?
No.
Not yet.
So we
Okay.
need to discuss it if there's a second.
Well, I'll second it, and then we can, so then we can have discussion. I don't think that there's going to be enough time to really collect input from the public. I would like to know, where our priorities are now. I think, if Longmont Public Media is collecting their data, well, they're collecting it from people who engage with them. So is that really, I don't want to devalue what they're collecting. I do want that to be included in the process as well. But kind of get an insight of what direction community wants to go. And so making sure that we, our contract reflects that. I have no problem with opening up for new requests for proposals. But I think to try to squeeze it in this year would not be fair. It wouldn't be just to you all, to Longmont Public Media. So to have that opportunity for more robust and then bring it back. And so I do concur with Councilmember Martin that we should give it a year, or use that time this next year and then just extend the contract for 1 year. And I don't know if Marcia included that in her, or Councilmember Martin included that in her motion for 1 year?
Yes.
She did.
I
She
intended
did.
to.
She did. Okay. So yeah, so I second, or you did.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I do want to clarify as well that Longmont Public Media, because we do have this partnership, we actually ran their engagement survey. So it really was
Okay.
a public,
Okay.
we actually helped them run that survey on the
Thank you
city
for the
site. So that,
clarification.
yeah, not that we wouldn't use that data, and it sounds like you'd still like a community involvement process if we have the year to work on it.
Okay, yeah.
Can I get a clarification? I want to know what the motion is to make sure. The way I understand the motion is council's directing staff to bring the contract back for a 1-year extension and engage in a process of rebidding it for 2026. Is
Yes.
that the motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay, so that motion's been made to bring renew the contract for 1 year with LPM with no changes in it. And they would still just get 50% of the franchise fee, whatever that happens to be. I do want to remind them, though, that even though they are not renting that building, it is a part of the contract. And it's probably $40,000 or more that if we rented it to them, it would be expensive. And we are paying utilities as well. So that's quite a addition to what they're doing. I personally would like to see what other video photographers or makers have to offer the city as well. That's my reason for an RFP. So I wouldn't mind putting it out, knowing that it wouldn't be to see what they have to offer anyone else, knowing that we're not going to look at it until 2026. So that's it? Nobody else has comments? Oh, you do? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Yarbrough.
So, speaking on the lease, so what will happen to LPM if it was awarded to someone else in 2026? I know you said those are two separate contracts. So what will happen at that time?
It would really be up to the city council to decide what to do. Their lease ends at the same time as their contract ends, so the council would decide what to do with the Carnegie Building. The only technical thing I would say is that I believe our head end for the Comcast feedback is at that building, which is why it's always made sense to grant it to the people who have the contract for the public and educational and government funding. I can check to make sure that that's still the case, because kind of old tech, but I believe that that's why that building was dedicated in that way, is because the Comcast feed, in order to get it out to Comcast customers on Channel 8, is located at that building.
So I definitely would like to know that information as well. So because if someone else is awarded that, then that means they will have to move into that building and LPM will have to move out. Or if LPM can stay there and whoever is awarded it, if it by chance it's not LPM, that they can still provide the services they need with it in their existing establishment.
Yes, I'll find out the answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great. And could we amend or change the agreement, contract with Comcast so that it's not necessarily awarded to that building, the franchise fee?
You could ask.
I don't know. I'm new to this. I have no idea. So let's vote. Oops, I'm sorry. Did you have a comment?
There are just a lot of details that I think need to be clarified. For one, we're saying that the franchise fees are going to be reduced, so we need to know if all these services are still possible, you know, with the amount of the franchise fee being reduced. And so I would.
The estimates for the franchise fee are less than they were this year because more people have left as customer base.
So I guess we'll need to know from LPM if they can do those level of services for that amount of pay. I'm wondering if we could continue the contract through 2025 until the RFP is complete, if that makes sense, and then evaluate it, which would mean maybe just extending it into, you know, extending it for 3 months into 2025 or. Yeah.
Well, we already have a
I know we
motion
have
on
a
the
motion,
table.
so that would be
So you
sort of
would-
an amendment to her.
Yeah, I know. Hang on. No, I didn't. You're fine. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Peck. I wanted to actually answer some of these questions because I spend enough time at the LPM meetings to know the answer to some of the questions. Comcast has been adamant in refusing to make any modifications to that gateway or whatever you call the data path that is located at the Carnegie Building. So it would be a McGilla to actually physically move that equipment if it's even possible. However, there are arrangements like, LPM could continue to occupy the studios and have an agreement to sublet to the portion, sublet access to the cable equipment just for the purpose of allowing the contract holder to carry that part out. So it could be arranged, and it works that way. LPM is chartered to increase its revenue from other sources and has done so every year since it had the contract. So it has the capability of compensating for a loss in the PEG revenue, because that was part of the design. And in fact, the failure of the previous cable trust to be willing to do that was the original reason that Councilmember Finley and I decided that it had to go out to a competitive bid back in 2017/18. So if that clarifies it and makes the existing motion make sense, all the other details, I think, could be worked out when the RFP was produced.
So let's vote on this motion, and I'll leave it up to our Assistant City Manager and staff to bring back the information that we need. Who are we waiting for? Okay. And that carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We are now at Mayor and Council comments. Are there any comments from councilors?
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry.
Aaron, I think you should answer. We don't hear from you very often, and
No, I just want to say, because last Tuesday I didn't get a chance to actually talk about my, I think, can you turn it down? There we go. Is that better? Yes. Okay. Sister cities, I went to Chino, Japan, and it was an amazing experience. And so I just want to say thank you. Sister Cities is doing a really good job. Chino, I did talk to the officials there. We had a 2.5-hour meeting with the city. Well, I had a 2.5-hour meeting with the city manager and other city employees, and also the sister cities there. Due to the lack of an exchange of students or city members coming back to the city of Longmont. So moving forward, we are working on that to have an exchange with them. I don't know how many of you know that Chino also have several microbreweries of beer and sake. So hopefully in the future, we will be able to have some type of celebration or festival here where we can bring Chino, our sister cities, to come and participate. Wouldn't it be nice to have Japanese breweries here along with our sister city with our breweries, and also sake, like up and down Main Street? How many people from all over the region will come and test that and taste it? So that is a goal that I have, so I'm on a mission. I'm sure somebody will email me and tell me what I should do. But it was very, very similar to Longmont. Mountainous, Mount Fuji is there. It's very beautiful, but more humid. Japan is the cleanest country I have ever been in, and I have been in quite a few. And if you are vegan or vegetarian, take a jar of peanut butter, because you're screwed. I starved for like 3 days. But anyway, it was amazing and it was great. And yeah, so that's what I wanted to say. Thank you, Mayor.
Fantastic. Are there any other comments? Does Councilor Martin have her hand up? No. Okay, City Manager.
Mayor and Council, I do have a comment. As you will recall, Boulder County convened a meeting of all the cities to discuss the challenges that we've had that we're all having with the unhoused in our communities and homelessness. The county is wanting to set up follow-up meetings, and they're asking for one elected official to represent respective council and boards, along with staff members that will be present, to help you all with that conversation, because we know operationally there's a lot of details. The meetings are scheduled for 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. on August 14th, September 18th, and October 9th. That'll be at the Boulder County Courthouse on Pearl Street, but it's so that they can utilize technology so people can connect remotely. So at this point, the staff members that'll primarily be engaged in that conversation are going to be Eliberto and Christina, but with involvement from our neighborhood impact team, which includes public safety, community neighborhood resources. And we were just wondering if one of you all would like to be the elected official that is with staff in those conversations.
Well, I am the Consortium of Cities liaison, and we are having a meeting tomorrow night here. But that's just 3 extra meetings. What nights are those? Wednesdays?
I think they're Wednesdays.
Yeah.
So I think that we should have more than one person as a backup in case someone can't go. This is really important, by the way. So, okay, Mayor Pro Tem Hidalgo Faring would like to be on there as well. So.
I can talk to him about 2.
Yeah, I would, yeah.
I can reach out to Jana and talk to her tomorrow about that. But if we have the 2 names, I can talk to her about it. And
You know, one thing that I'm going to ask whoever goes is that when they are talking about financing, that we push Longmont and that there's equity in distribution of those dollars, because sometimes that does not happen. Just saying.
On that note, when we talk about the 1B funding for housing, both affordable and attainable, we have communicated with council that at least the recommendation that we're putting forward is more of a direct allocation so that we can incorporate that within our existing funding streams. And we've been consistent on that as staff as we're heading hopefully to a decision point in the near future. The two are inherently intertwined with each other.
Okay, so it will be either both or one of Mayor Pro Tem Hidalgo Faring and Councilor McCoy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. City Attorney remarks?
No comment, Mayor.
Oh, I was waiting for something. Yes, anybody up here want to adjourn this meeting? All right.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved and seconded by who? McCoy moved, Martin seconded. All those in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.